All right. Shalom. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it is in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Aman. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, Mosayo, Ohio. I see you. Uh, Mosayo, Anakitawaya, uh, Aquaba, Etisen. Habari, Jambo, Mimini Kofi, Nina Faraku Katana Nwewe. Hello, my name is Pastor Kofi. I'm Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Thank you for joining us again here today. We give all honor and praise once again to Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And her business is making sure that the health of the diaspora is, in fact, her business. So we thank you for your support of that business. If you do so already, if you'd like to, we thank you in advance. And thank you for being on today. If it's your first time, if it's one time of many, to the moderators, to ministerial staff, to SOC, to Lottie Dottie, and everybody, we appreciate your presence so very much. And thanks for being on today. See you on here. How you doing, Brooklyn? Let's say hello to everybody. How you doing? Uh, Sia, Saiha, Sierra. I hope I said that right. Brooklyn Butterfly, Brother Dwayne. How's everybody doing? Let's see. Sister Nadine, Sister Helen, Keith, Sister Judith, Leo, Black Steel, The Boyism, Brother Alton, Kinkless, Big Brother Thomas, and everybody who's coming on. We appreciate you so very much. Thank you for being in attendance one more again. And today we're going to talk about marriage, and we're going to talk about marriage in chains. That is the conversation for today, marriage in chains. What is the effect of captivity on what you feel about your marriage? Marriage in chains. Um, Very important topic to discuss, something of value to discuss to ensure that we're going through and to recognize what's happening. Marriage in chains, marriage in chains. Many people have brought a certain mindset with them out of chattel slavery, out of being oppressed, out of a tax situation, out of being a U.S. citizen rather than being a sovereign or a private citizen, or rather, a lot of them are public citizen minds instead of private. Don't recognize what marriage actually is by definition, and we want to bring some cultural value to it, a different cultural perspective, if we can. So, we thank you guys for being on today. How you doing, Queen? Queen Din Jolie? How you doing, Sister Marianne? How you doing, Sister Betty? Izzy, thanks for being part of the community. You said Jorge says men take care of yourself because no one will. Yep. If you are looking for people that aren't wise, for sure, you will never you will get exactly what you're looking for. Somebody that won't take care of you. And if you're not able to take care of yourself or really allow something bigger than yourself to be your guide, then you will sure be in that position. Right. But I'm not here to denigrate all women. I'm not here to denigrate all men. I'm here to tell you that there is a mindset that comes in with us when we're here. Right. And I'm here to make sure that we comprehend the mindset, and we're bringing a lot of other people's mindset. See, a lot of us, and how you doing, Coco and Taryn, and all these, everybody's coming on, Sister Monica, Swabona, thanks for being part of community. Dot City, you're welcome. How you doing, User 395? Shalom to you, Mall 2XX. So what happens with a lot of people is that their marriage is in chains. You treat your marriage. See, if you have an effect, if you've been affected by slavery and you're still keeping the slave mindset, then you will treat your spouse like a slave. That's what you were taught how to do. How you doing, Snap? Thanks for being on, Kayla. Right? So if you are coming out of a slave mentality, then of course you will treat those around you in that same mentality. How you doing, No Chaser? And is it, I don't know what you track, E313 star? I don't know exactly what it is, right? But you're putting on there. But see, a lot of people, you come out of slave mentality and you have one. Some people haven't come out of it. What I mean by come out of it, you're coming out. You've lived. You've been taught about things from a Greco-Romantic value system. And how you doing, Brother Vincent? And how you doing, brother? Sorry, excuse me. How you doing, Minister Shante? How you doing, Sister Shlanda? So a lot of people are coming out of a system that says that chauvinism, and really it's not chauvinism. Chauvinism basically really means a hyper sense of patriotism. But when you talk about male chauvinism or even female chauvinism, if you want to talk about misogyny or misandry, if you want to talk about the patriarchy or the matriarchy, whichever one you choose to try and argue for, it usually is coming out of a mindset of a slave mentality. And how you doing? Is that thank you for the love? Is that Liberviator? I think, right? And thank you for the love, right? So we have to get to this place. How you doing, Tony? We got to get to this place where we try to figure out what is going on as far as this marriage. Even if you're talking about your canonical viewpoint, if you're talking about who you worship, you married to it, to him. Some of you would say to her. Some of you would say to them. Whatever, right? You're married to it. Everything that you're doing is you're married to that thing. You said what literature? So what I'm saying has no value until that you can make sure that you go through it, right? That's the slave master mentality. But I'll go ahead and say, how about the Five Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman? That's one that we go by quite often. What about Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? That's something that has nothing to do with spiritual belief whatsoever and supposed to be based on somebody who believes in evolution. I also would believe in a biblical context if you actually know the culture of it. Like when it talks about marriage, are you a husband qualified before marriage to find a wife in your work, a wife who's qualified before marriage? If you want to go by what the United States says across all the different states, we could talk about something as simple as, I don't know, when you get married to the state, right? Because that's who you get married to. It's always between three people. It's you, your spouse, and the state, right? The government. So if you decide to have a public marriage rather than a private marriage, you go and apply for a license. And even if you get licensed to be married, if you guys don't have sex, all right, for months, and you go back before a judge, the judge will annul the marriage because it never existed, because you have to consummate it. For sex is marriage, marriage is sex. So there's many different sources if you'd like to study. But trust and believe, I have these things inside me. So today, if you like for me to be the source, and then if you want to check sources to check out this source, and so be it. Right? But you see what I'm saying? A lot of people are doing marriage in chains. First question asked, right? Out the gate. Well, what is it that I can verify that what you say is there? Because if you say it's there, I don't know what you're coming from. And I get it. You should be able to ask questions. But the thing of saying I'm going to question the source before you even see what's going on, I guess I get that, but then that's why a lot of you can't have conversation, because if the master doesn't say it, right, whatever the master determines, whether you're black or white, by the way, everybody out here being house Negroes, right? So if you're going to be if the master's going to determine what you think marriage is, what you think parenting is, then you're going to have a problem. That's why a lot of people whip their children, because master whipped the slave, right? That's why a lot of people backhand their wife, because the master was in charge and she had no rights, right? And Kemet, women might even be the determination of the bloodline, right? We had no problem with women doctors. Matter of fact, we appreciated it. There's certain things that a woman should do that a man cannot, shouldn't touch, right? You see what I'm saying? Well, patriotism and capitalism, especially in America, go hand in hand. If you go somewhere where capitalism isn't there, but you're still a patriot, and the system of patriotism, the system of capitalism can mix together differently. But in America, you would definitely say that. England, you would definitely say that. Canada, etc. Okay, David Young, thanks for being on. Right, how you doing, Miss Pierce? So you have to comprehend that. I mean, you have the Black Woman's Guide to Understanding the Black Man, sure, if you want to go there, right? But I'd like to be able to give you some sources, like if you want to go, I guess what Steve Harvey had that popular book a long time ago, telling you how men think or whatever. There's a plethora of places you can go to check out what I'm saying. But see, all of this is once again going to become something that's cultural. How you doing, Spike Me? How you doing, Sister Tracy? Shalom to everybody. Barakallah, Cham Yachava. Thanks for being on. Bakwartav. Right? It's already finished for you before the rising of the sun. I worship Yahshua as the son of Elacham, Bar Elacham, right? Before he was Yesus, half man, half Zeus, he had a name that he told us to call him, or Amanava'al, Emmanuel, right? But yes, I believe in the Son of the Father, right? Now, if you like to listen to what I have to say, see what I'm saying? It's a slave mentality. You have marriage in chains, right? You have people that have marriage in chains. I'm an Avla by blood, E1B1A blood type. So I'm Avla or Hebrew or Israelite by blood. Right. And I'm also based on many other different things. So I believe in Israelite faith. I am, in fact, an Israelite by bloodline, even recognized by those who say that they are more Israelite than we are in the grand scheme of things. So anywhere you want to go by it. Once again, you see what I'm saying? We can't even talk about marriage. Why? Because we're in chains. We have this thing of, I've got to make you fit in my box first, and then I'll listen. Right? That a lot of people have their marriage in chains. Marriage should not be in chains, but a lot of people's marriage is in chains. You should truly appreciate the value and teachings of the past 7 months. Thank you very much, Ned. I appreciate it. Right. So you see what I'm saying? Like, we don't recognize we don't recognize what we're married to, and a lot of people are married to something coming out of a mentality that says that we shouldn't treat people with respect. Once again, if you're dealing in a system of chattel slavery, and that's what you spend, slave master on your money, if that's what you talk about all the time because people won't do anything about it, if that's how you act, right, like you're not allowed to buy something unless you have a mark on it, right, if that's how you participate in it. I don't want to get married because I'm going to be enslaved, because a lot of people, that's their mentality. You already know what you're going into. Then guess what's going to happen to you? You're going to treat your marriage as slavery. You're going to treat your spouse as a slave. You're going to treat your children as slaves. You're going to treat your environment as a slave environment. You don't want a house, you want a plantation, right? You don't want a house, you want a plantation. And that's one of the issues that goes on with marriage. Marriage to the Most High, marriage to one another, marriage to your business, marriage to your mission, marriage to yourself. Hey, how you doing, Keith Pinkston? That's pretty great try, I guess. But thank you for being on. If that's your way of saying hello, thank you so much, right, for coming on with that hominum and shows the slave mentality, right? And thank you for proving my point, right? It's going to be hard to teach somebody or even talk to somebody about something if you come with a slave mindset. You see that? Like, I don't even, I praise y'all for it because I don't even have to work that hard. As soon as we start teaching them stuff, somebody's going to come in and show you exactly what we're talking about. How you doing, babe? Once again, please check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. How you doing, IG_true? Right? You see what I'm saying? So think about it. Why is it that you down one another? Is that because it's our culture, or is it because somebody taught you that through slavery? Hey, brother Doug, how you doing? Right? Think about it. Why do you down one another? My wife's info is in here right now. She's on it. Bloom and flourish, like a bloom of a rose, the letter N and flourish. If you scroll through, you see it. Sister Deja just said hello to her. All that stuff. Right? Thank you for the compliment. So why are you not? Why do you talk about? Why do you talk about people, right, the way that you do? Why do we automatically have to make fun of somebody in order to feel superior to them? That's not a cultural thing, at least for us. Now somebody takes away your culture. How you doing, Billy Ray? Somebody says you have to live by this one. They take the things that they like from it. As Willie Lynn said, we keep the body but we take the mind. Keep the body in place where they'll work for us, but take their mindset away. And now you treat each other as a slave master treats you, right? Why is it that you still, when somebody says to your child, right, you can be sitting up there, how you doing, Ernie's Heart, and everybody coming on, if I miss you, please forgive me, right? Why is it that you can be speaking to your child, and as you speak to your child, I'm sorry, as you're watching your child accepting awards, you can say, oh wow, little Johnny's doing well up there, and the other parent can say thank you, and then they say, but Tayshawn, he's doing really well up there too. Tayshawn, he's doing excellent. Isaiah, he's up there doing excellent. They're doing, matter of fact, they're getting the best award out of it. You must be so proud. Why do you turn to your child and say, if you only knew all the stuff I had to do, and that boy, he don't be listening, he don't do this, and he don't clean, and you can't just say thank you. That's a holdover from slavery. Why? Because in slavery, if the master gave a compliment about your child, that child might be sold, or they might be killed, because they shouldn't be that smart. Or if they are that smart, you got to make money off, right? So you still do the same thing. We just automatically say somebody's a bad parent. Your parenting comes from what was placed in front of you. There was something passed down for generations. And see, this is why we had to talk about PTSS. Dr. Joy DeGruy, another person, the person who was saying that I don't have any references, another person you can look up, Dr. Joy DeGruy, wrote a book called PTSS, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, where she talks about what we as a diaspora have gone through and certain things that we continue to hold on to that we need to start to release and heal from and realize the trauma of, and simultaneously tells you that other people who were part of the diaspora that we say try to enslave us, right? And we try to just make this blanket statement that all of them were in on it. Well, even if you believe that, they all had to be taught that that was the way it was. They had to be messed up. And we had to be messed up in order for this system of capitalism, of chattel slavery, still allowed by the 13th Amendment, of thinking that it's more important of where you come from rather than who you come from, the 14th Amendment, of making you believe that you actually have the same rights as somebody because now you can vote for them and your polls mean something, 15th Amendment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We had to have somebody teach us those things. Hey, how you doing, Sister Awesome? Right? So if I'm carrying certain things cannot be denied. I'm carrying them from a certain thing. Do I speak on the Moors? I'm a Moor myself. But once again, see what I'm saying? We're coming out of this place. Hey, I'm not listening to you unless you, hey, do you teach on that? I don't even know if that's exactly what you meant, but I'm just trying to give an example. Do you teach on that? You teach on this? Do you do this? Because we have this mindset that if it doesn't fit into what Master says, whoever our Master is, because all of us are owned by something or somebody, some kind of environment. Thank you for being part of the community, no handle. No matter what you say, there's some kind of environment. Right? Whatever matter what you say, there's some kind of environment that's there, right? No matter what you want to call it, there's some kind of environment that you're in and that guides you and that makes you feel how you feel. The Moors were many different colors. Moors basically was a way, whether it was an African way of saying or a Eurocentric way of saying or a Eurasian way of saying it, or what people try to call now Middle Eastern, or you're talking about Ottoman Empire, et cetera. Anybody that referred to a Moor, even Asians, Chinese specifically, Taiwanese, et cetera, even Japanese, right? If you're talking about a Moor, you're talking about somebody that basically they were looking at as far as color. If we were talking about Moors, we were talking about the fact that we came from certain parts of Africa. So yeah, we could be reddish or ruddy. We could be black or anything like that. Said, is it incorrect for anyone to say shalom? No, as long as it's culturally appropriate. So if you're saying peace be upon you, the peace that literally destroys things by teaching you what is righteous to help you to make sure that you are living correctly in the water, the blood, and the spirit, then peace be upon you. Shalom. Barak Allah. Acham Yachava. Shalom. Right? Anybody can be grafted in if you're willing to be connected to the root. How you doing, Buttersworth? Thanks for being part of the community. So we have the slave mentality that goes with this, right? We have this slave mentality that comes in where we as a people, hey, Washington, D.C. in the house, DMV in the house, how you doing? Right? So we have this mindset that says that we have to go with what was given to us. Even when people start talking about race, right? Like, where did race, as far as it having to do with human beings, where did that come from? You know that before you thought about race with humans, race was something that was considered for animals. Right? Did you know that? Did you know that? Right? A lot of us talk about race as if this is a human thing. Race was something that was for animals. And by the way, before it was for animals, it just had to do with competition. How you doing, DeQuisha Austin? Thanks for being part of the community. So if DeQuisha and I were going to race each other, somebody said, on your marks, get set, go. As soon as they said go, guess what? We were in a race. And if DeQuisha starts going faster than me, the faster she goes, that means the more separated she is. That's why fasting means separate yourself from eating. So the faster she went, the more separate she was. And when she won the race, then she won the competition. So race used to just be in a competition. But you have to ask yourself, why don't you even think about it as competition anymore, even though that's what it is? Why don't you think about it as far as animalistic behavior, right? Carl Linnaeus, Charles Darwin. But you take these mindsets and you bring them into your marriage. And now you think of race as only the social construct or the colonial construct, rather than, hey, if we're talking about race, then we need to make sure that we can compete and not compete amongst each other, especially those of us who love one another, but compete against anybody or compete with, rather, because we don't even need to compete against anybody. We just need to be competitive with other environments. Do we help each other with business? Do we help each other with love? Do we help each other as far as our marriages? Do we help each other with the raising of our children? Oh, we got two. Oh, that's what Quee was. I didn't know that's what Quee was for. Okay, now I know. Now I know. How you doing, Born? Thanks for being back with me and Born Goddess. I don't know if it's H Hariath. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Thanks for being on. Yeah. See, now you say it's classified as species, but when you read about, for example, when you read Charles Darwin's book, you must understand like Charles Darwin is Linnaean. Carl Linnaeus, or he's from the Linnaean branch of thought. It says it on the most famous book, right? The book that Charles Darwin wrote, right? That everybody that blew up, that everybody still to this day talks about, with the fifth type of this, the six types of evolution, right? Grand rising to you, Julius. When that book is literally entitled, right? Um, the origin of species, colon, the theory of evolution by means of natural selection or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. That's the name of the book. And it says in parentheses that this is Linnaean doctrine, it's royal doctrine, and it's geological doctrine. So when you're talking about evolution, but anybody who's talking about Darwinism, they always dismiss the fact that he wrote the book specifically to tell you that he was trying to say, and by the way, his only degree technically was in preaching. So it's often interesting that people say that religion has nothing to do with it, but this man took religion, then added science to it to make it very clear to you that the way that the Most High created all things, right? You have white man's burden. Look up that there's an actual thing called the white man's burden. And around his time, there was something called manifest destiny. Look up what those two things are, and you'll discover the doctrine of discovery, where you can discover somebody else's country and not even be there, right? Or somebody lives there, you're not even from there, but you're allowed to discover it, right? But look up, Charles Darwin's book, and when you read that book specifically, once again, it's called The Origin of Species: colon, the Theory of Evolution, or or I'm sorry, by means of natural selection. What does natural selection mean? Or the struggle for survival of favored races. And he was trying to tell you that different races, right? He actually he calls, anytime he talks about the white race that are from different evolved from different animals, he will call them like humans or something like that. But then whenever he talks about any other race, he had about 7 other races, I believe, right? It could be even more, right? But when you read it, you'll discover that every time he talked about them, he did not refer to them as species. He referred to them as races. Well, why is that important? Well, when you read his book, you'll discover that every time he talks about an animal, he talks about races. So he says, there's this bird race, blah, blah, blah. So when he starts talking about race, he's saying this bird race, da, 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 da. So therefore, since this bird race did whatever, now what happens? This human race, this type of human race, has the characteristics of this animal. That's why they're not as righteous as us. This is the conversation. This is what was taught in schools. This is what is still taught in school. How you doing, the toilet web? Thanks for being part of the community, right? And how you doing, Miss Genuine? Thanks for being part of the community. Malcolm Grave as well, right? So you thank you, Key Davis, appreciate it. And hey, how you doing, Sister Rocky? So you got to be in the place to realize what they're saying, right? How you doing, Carmen? Thank you for that, Brittany. It's been a while, I feel like. So are we seeing these things correctly? Are we realizing that when somebody talks about Darwinism, they're talking about races as far as each animal has a race, so now each human being has a race. That's what they're talking about, and they're talking about the struggle of survival for favored races, right? They're talking about competition, right? Race is a competition. On your marks, get set, go, you race. Well, they're saying that all these animals are in a race of natural selection, and it's a struggle of survival for favored races. So if white people are the best race, I'm not saying they are, but that's the colonial social construct Darwin is coming out of. So that's the community he's representing. So if he's talking about anything having to do with sex, marriage, relationships, how you treat your children, how you should go to your jobs, etc. If he's talking about any of those things, he's talking about that as far as race. He's talking about the race of animals and trying to say you are an animal. That's why people try to say that you have animalistic behavior, because they're trying to say you should act like the animal you come from. That's why they called you a gorilla, even though they didn't even believe you when you told them that they were gorillas, until they finally found them for themselves. And then they said they discovered it because of the doctrine of discovery. That was something labeled by the Pope in 1452, saying that, hey, if we go somewhere, and it didn't become official till 1493, right after Christopher Columbus in 1492 sailed the ocean blue, and after 1491 when they took over the Moors in Spain, right? But basically, that's what's going on there. So you hear somebody say race, and you're not even realizing they're talking competition. You said the best race is the human race? Sure. Tell that to Charles Darwin. Tell that to anybody who's Darwinistic in their mentality. Tell that to Carl Linnaeus. I have no problem with that. Right? You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? And so somebody comes on quick. Hey, human race. Stop talking about all these different races, just one race. I didn't bring up the teaching. I didn't make that up. You're coming to the wrong person. You're preaching to the crowd. Or you're preaching to the choir, rather. Like, right? Like, you don't need to turn around and preach to me. I'm singing and backing you up. Amen. All right. Well, don't get in trouble to work. I'm on. Right. But thanks for being part of the community, Big Virgo. So we're having this conversation and not realizing where it comes from. We don't know where this conversation comes from. We're just talking. We're just talking for the sake of talking. Right? How you doing, Straight 8 9? Right? We just having a conversation without context. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. Right? So everybody's out here. Oh, this and that. Well, what about humans? Blah, blah, blah. Look. I wouldn't have to talk about lifting my people up and saying it's okay to be melanated if somebody didn't come along and say that it was bad. See, and I have to talk about it because you only think, for a lot of people, their thought process is only human race. That's it. But you don't recognize that if somebody's been teaching this doctrine for 400, 500, really 1,000 years, 1,500 years, if we want to go there as far as Rome, right? If we can go back further than that, you got to go back before Christ, right? Carthaginians against the Punic or Punic Wars. If we're going to be honest about it, somebody's been teaching a doctrine for so long, and it's turned into something that has basically delegated a sense of indecency that has allowed us to continue to fall further into depravity, letting us stay in depression over and over again. At some point, we should say, hey, maybe we should talk about this and lift this burden off. Maybe we should take the burden of proof off of ourselves and stop having to prove ourselves through the mentality of something else, right? Maybe we should start looking at ourselves as being free. What is today? Today is the 31st, right? I believe. Yeah, the 31st. So tomorrow's going to be February 1st. That's the beginning of Black History Month. Guess what's going to happen? Everybody during Black History Month is going to start talking about stuff starting from slavery. That's where they're going to start. That's detrimental to a people, whether you're white or black or in between. That's detrimental if all you're going to see, right? That's detrimental if all you're going to see in us and seeing yourself is, hey, this person since slavery has done this. This person since slavery has done this. You're not going to talk about Imhotep. You're not going to talk about Queen Ty. You're not going to talk about Queen Nzinga, right away, who's still dealing in the time of slavery, right? But you don't even know these names. You're not going to talk about Akhenaten, right? If you talk about Tutankhamun, you're only going to talk about the fact that he died. Right? You're not going to talk about Nefertiti. Right? It's just this happened starting with slavery and afterwards. So if you see yourself like that, even in Black History Month, how do you see yourself in your family? Right? How you doing, Sister Saul? How do you see yourself in your family? Right? How do you see yourself in your family? Hey, how you doing, Son of Creator? It has been a while. Thanks for stopping by. Right? If you can't see yourself past being in chains, then you can't see your family past being in chains. And that's what we're talking about today. Marriage in chains. People are coming together married, but you're still enslaved mentally. How you doing, Sister Shima? You said they don't want to teach us our greatness. Yeah. And people get mad. Well, we have to start teaching it. And people say, well, why are you always so focused on it? Because people erased it for so long. People are still erasing it. Ask is it Governor DeSantis? I don't know who it is, whatever the governor is, right? Ask them. Ask Texas. Ask Florida what they feel about us simply saying, hey, we might want to learn about ourselves. And somebody says that's detrimental still. Right? So if they won't let you know about yourself, how are you going to know about becoming one with somebody else? Because that's what marriage is. Even lawfully, legally, sex is marriage. Marriage is sex. Your contract is not valid until you become one. But see, once you guys are great at breeding, a lot of people are great at breeding, but you're not great at marriage because you were taught to breed, but you weren't taught to have sex for the sake of leaving something for the fruit that comes out of your marriage. I would agree with you. I don't believe in the theory of evolution, but I'm just giving you a point of view, right? And why we look at it different in our culture. He said we have to take that step individually and know it and promote it and teaches the truth, teaching correctly. Yeah, right. A lot of people are into breeding. A lot of people are into breeding because you come from chattel mentality, chattel slavery, right? Just because you protect your children doesn't mean you're teaching your children. Animals can protect their children, and they teach them as well. It doesn't mean that they're teaching their children to be any more than an animal. Well, what I'm saying as far as breeding, right? Sex is marriage, marriage is sex. If you're going to get a license by the state, or if you're going to do your own marriage contract and do that license, whatever it is you're going to do, whatever decision you decide to make, right? You have to comprehend that when you go through this, right? You have to comprehend when you go through this marriage, when you go through this mindset, when you go through this determination, whatever it is, right? And how you doing, Minister Tamara? Yeah, and their system is teaching lies, right? Not the whole truth. So when you're talking about sex, sex is marriage, marriage is sex. If you go anywhere, like if you go down, walk down the aisle, whatever you're going to do, and y'all don't have sex, the marriage is not considered to be a marriage. You can annul it because it never existed, right? But a lot of people don't have sex to make sure that they get the fruits of marriage. They have sex just for the sake of having sex. And if we so happen to have a child out of breeding, then so be it. A lot of people are used to being bred. You have sex with no purpose. Now, we would say that taking a class with no purpose is crazy. We would say that playing a sport with no purpose is crazy. We would say working out with no purpose doesn't make sense. Like, yeah, work out. But if you work out with no purpose, you could hurt yourself. We could say, we would say, um, spending your money with no purpose is not valuable, right? However, we say having sex with no purpose is valuable. We don't believe in praying before a marriage. You'll pray before you eat. You'll pray before you get out of bed. You'll pray before you. But when you become one with somebody, you won't even pray and ask for the Most High to protect that union. You said your loved ones to get married. However, you don't believe in a contract with the state. Yeah, well, you can write your own contract and still be married, right? And make sure you're qualified for the contract that you sign. Because we're supposed to be pre-qualified. At least in our culture, you're pre-qualified. He who finds a wife, she should already be worthy of a wife. And when I find her, I should already be a husband. I should be worthy of her, being given this opportunity to become my wife. Dating is not something that's required for marriage, because dating is not even something that's biblical, if that's the canon that you uphold. You said in Texas, if there is ED or no childbearing abilities, I'm sorry, the marriage can be annulled. Yeah, if you can't have sex, you can't have marriage. It can be annulled. Hopefully it's not we got together and then we just broke up because you got ED and I didn't just make sure you ate some food to make sure that blood could rush back to the area, or I just gave up, on you. But some people do that because, once again, it's about, that is a huge part of marriage. Like, we got to be honest, especially for men. Women need sex too, but number one need of a man is respect. Number two need of a man is going to be sex. He's designed to give seed, whether you like it or not. You say your man is just a hound, a horn dog, or this and that or whatever. No, he's designed to give seed for the rest of his life. He never stops giving seed. He always wants to give seed. You see what I'm saying? He always wants to give seed. That's what he's designed to do. You always going to give direction. Yeah, because in our culture, Proverbs chapter 1, verse 8, husband gives direction. The father gives direction. The mother lays down the law. Right? But we have a lot of sisters that want to give direction and lay down the law. And we got a lot of husbands that want to give direction and lay down the law. No, you two become one. Whoever I become one with, I give. If I'm the husband and I become one with my wife, right? I give her the right to lay down the law. Because if she'll allow me to be in the garden and to plant seed there, then she should be able to protect the seed. Remember, law doesn't give rights, law protects rights. So if I'll go ahead and have seed and give seed there, she must have law to protect it. So she gets to, based off the direction, the seed that was given, she protects it. That's the law. That's why wisdom is feminine in our culture. The Holy Spirit is a she in our culture, because those are things that are feminine. Am I a person of a particular religion? Well, yeah. The word religion, we just go by what it actually means. Religion, a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing. So if you go for a run every day, and a lot of people go for a run, then that's you guys' religion, by definition. If you mean, what do I call myself? A follower of the way, Yashra, Shwe, Anakitaboya, Taino, Cherokee, Tisalagi, the list goes on and on. Right. But but yeah, right. But a lot of people are in a place to where they're looking for all these different things, and you're not looking for where you have marriage and chains, where we're chained by these things rather than doing things to become free. How you doing, woman of God? First, thanks for being part of the community. Appreciate you. And how you doing, Latoria, Latoria Rochelle, SC. I don't know if that means South Carolina, but thank you for being part of the community. Appreciate you. So we have a lot of people who are doing things in chains. Still, you have still an enslaved mindset. And thank you, is it Tik Tiktaka, Tiktakakan? Hopefully, I said that correctly, right? So we don't have a mindset of, when I lay down with you, I should be qualified to plant a seed in you, and you should be qualified to keep the law, because the law protects your rights. Takakan, okay, right? You said an enslaved mindset is not impossible to change. It's not, right? But you have to start putting things in place. And an enslaved mindset is a habit, right? Enslaved mindset rather helps you to perform habits. So how do you break a habit? You have to start a new one, and you have to replace it. That's what deliverance really is. People talk about, I'm delivered from this, I'm delivered from that. Okay, if you're really delivered, this is what's going to go on, right? If you really delivered like you say you are, right? You say you delivered and everything. Well, if you're really delivered like you say you are, this is what's going to happen. You're going to put a new habit in place of a old habit. And how you doing, Sister Laura? Shalom. Right? And how you doing, King Drew? Right? So we don't recognize that. But once again, we don't like law. But law doesn't uh, give rights. Law protects rights. You said, how do I explain? Okay, somebody came on with that. Okay, well, first of all, hello, how are you doing? Secondly, I'm not blaming the white man for everything. I'm not even talking about the Confederate flag or the Confederate Jack, which is what people wave today. But if you want to talk about how do I blame Black Confederate soldiers? Sure, there are Black Confederate soldiers who came in and decided. Right, matter of fact, they didn't even decide. They did what the master told them. A lot of them were house Negroes or field Negroes that were forced into making sure that they fought. And at first, they weren't allowed to fight. And then the same thing happened. Like, let's go back further. If you would talk about that real quick, right? Because you got to have the mentality correct. You know, people of color or Black people or Black Confederate soldiers, you must comprehend what the Confederacy and this Union was about. You're talking about it as if, oh, Black people just showed up to fight, so they must have wanted to, or they believed in what it is, right? And you're going off of states' rights type of mentality. I already can hear the lost cause rhetoric in your words. You have to go look up, why did Georgia say they were going to fight? They said that they were fighting to keep slavery. Why did Virginia say they were going to fighting to keep slavery, right? Matter of fact, places like Texas and others, they said, some of these places even said that slavery was beneficial both to the bond, the slave, and the free. Now, did the bonds feel like they should be enslaved? Of course not. So just listen to me. That's why the moderators keep getting on you, right? Just listen to me for a minute, right? Here where I'm about to go. See, because I've told you, in order for slavery, chattel slavery to even exist, you have to teach white people wrong and teach Black people wrong simultaneously, so that the overseer will think he's better than the slave he gets to whip, even though the overseer lives in the same conditions that the slave lives in, right? The overseer is just a house Negro, and the house Negro is just an overseer, except the only difference between the two is that one is white and one is Black. So, which means technically there's nothing different. What if the mods banned you? Well, then you wouldn't be here. They might have muted you. But if they banned you, or unless you're coming on a different thing, and if so, I'm not 100% sure how the conversation went, right? But we have to be very protective of this community, because people say anything that people say that's wrong, they can take us down because of something you're saying that's wrong. So we have to even be careful of that, right? But let's keep on going. So if you're going to talk about why is the fight for slavery starts with the British versus what you now call Americans. It was a British Civil War. You call it the Revolutionary War, but it was a British Civil War. It was the Brits versus the Brits, right? So you have a chained mentality to something that's not true. Like, look up the historical evidence. It was capitalism. The British are starting to realize that people are fighting for their freedom, and it's easier to just let them think that they're free and be on the bottom than it is to go ahead and just tell them outright that they're slaves. So the British are getting rid of slavery, as a lot of people are. The British won't do it until after the Haitians finally break the French in Haiti, right? and then they sell everything to Thomas Jefferson and Louisiana Purchase. But the British are basically headed towards that, and the British want to start taking taxes. Now, people who are smart and know law, they know that whoever is taxed, you are in debt, and whoever's in debt is a slave. So if you're in debt, you're a slave. If you're a slave, you're in debt by law. How you doing, Sister Sharice? So they know this about you. They know this about you, right? They know this. That freedom in capitalist society always remains the same as it was in ancient Greek republics. Yeah, freedom for slave owners, right? And that's the same thing we're talking about. How you doing, Key Davis? Thanks for being part of the community. So now, peep game. So now, peep game. We have this thing going on where you have capitalism, the English, right, versus chattel slavery, the people who are trying to break away from the English. And a lot of people didn't want to break away from the English until the slave owners, Benjamin Franklin, the slave owners, George Washington, the slave owners, Thomas Jefferson, the slave owners, uh, 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 John Adams and his son, John Quincy Adams, the slave owners, Madison, the slave owners, Monroe, right? They come together, these founding fathers, and they come together for conversation, right? Well, Lincoln, but Lincoln's not alive at this time, right? But Lincoln, by the way, he would become a slave owner. He was born a slave. Remember, his daddy was a slave owner. His mama was black and black African and black native. That's why he's called Melungeon, right? Way before Barack Obama, there were black presidents, right? Black president, not all skin folk is kinfolk, so don't get it twisted. That's why we're not doing this thing of just because you're black, you're good, and just because you're white, you're bad. Right? If that's your mindset because you see a picture that I put up or something like that, that's a mindset you have to deal with, right? And you won't even hear what the theme is, what we're talking about. But nevertheless, so you had these slave owners that came together and they were talking about that they don't want to be taxed because they realize as slave owners, whoever gets taxed is a slave and they don't want to become what they own. They don't want to be owned by anybody, even though they own. So they write something particular for their people. And really what happened was, before I get there, you have to look at what happened. King George says, we're going to try to tax you. They had never been taxed. The British Empire had never taxed the United States of America. They asked for the first time. They say, hey, we basically are your police officers. We stretch across the world. We've been taxing other places. We need help. We just finished this long war. Before the Revolutionary War, we just finished this really long war. So we would love it if you could help us out for the first time. Can you pay taxes? But they understood that taxes mean you're in debt. And if you're in debt, you're a slave. So what do? You say, no, we're not going to pay. You go against that. So then they gave a different tax. They went against that. They gave a different one. And then finally, right, they decided that they were going to break away from the empire. Now, it was a minority. There wasn't this thing if it was a heavy majority, everybody just wanted to break away from England. Right? That wasn't what happened. It was a minority. Only a few people. In relatively speaking, only a few wanted to break away from the British Empire. They considered themselves to still be British, and they had no problem with it. It was the rich elite that said we don't want to pay taxes because the elite know that when you pay taxes to somebody, you go into debt. They knew this. It wasn't something that was a new mindset. And thank you to everybody that's coming on. We appreciate you, right? So it was those who they didn't want to pay taxes. So King George gets upset with his best friend, George Washington, who, by the way, they both had women that were brunette or brownish, or they were people who passed for white or were close enough to white to where it was acceptable to marry them, right? King George's wife, right? Go look her up. Queen Catherine, right? Who her bloodline now flows into everybody, including even the Queen of England, who then died, and now you have the King of England. Right, and all the kings and queens of royalty all over Rome. They had Rome all over Europe. Right, they had 15 children, 2 of which died, and all 13 of them married into all the countries. So you can't even talk about those countries without Queen Catherine's bloodline. Right, and then you have George Washington. You had these 2 Georges that were great friends, went to each other's birthday parties and all that stuff. All of a sudden, King George has enough because he sees that they're trying to put a coup together. So he sends word. He's like, look, y'all doing this. You coming against the crown. I thought you were my boy. We gonna kill y'all. They actually then, y'all think it was just give me liberty or give me death right away. What happens is they got scared. And you know what happens after that? They sent word back. They sent word back to the king. They said, hey, my bad. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Please forgive us. Don't kill us. We did the wrong thing. We'll get it together. But King George wouldn't respond. And lawfully, even to this day, if somebody gets a letter of notice of some kind and nobody responds, right, it means that you're in agreement with what's about to happen. So when King George didn't respond, they knew this man about to kill us. So then you see the Boston Tea Party. Now watch this. What's the original definition of an American? The original definition of American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas, according to Western law, not according to my law, according to Western law. Look it up, right? There's two types of Americans. See, you guys only think about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., two Americas. And there's true, there are two Americas in that sense, but there are two Americans. The original one is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas, copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. And this isn't even really the true copper color. This is something refined, right? But you can see as it gets older, right? I don't mind to get it older. I don't worry about trying to keep it shiny. So as it gets older and it goes back to the norm, you can see that it gets darker and darker because copper is dark. So a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas is the original American. What happens at the Boston Tea Party? They take the people who they've scalped, right? They take the people's possessions that they've scalped. They take their headbands, they take their clothing, they put on blackface, they put on some stuff, they start doing obscene stuff like, that stuff that y'all like to, be disrespectful with or whatever to those of us that are indigenous, right? And they started putting that stuff on and they started going around and they threw the T off, right? The T had something called a Stamp Act. The Stamp Act, if we put a stamp on it, you got to pay taxes for it. They threw it overboard. And then they came together, had a meeting and said, we're the Americans. They literally put on blackface, said we're copper colored, right? You think it was a lawful thing. Remember, everything that's lawful is not legal and everything that's legal is not lawful. But we don't care about law. Hey, how you doing, Brother Jeremy? So here we go, where these people are doing something legal in their eyes, but it is definitely not lawful, right? And now they say we are the Americans. And then what do? They write in 1776, the Declaration of Independence. And what does that declaration say? They declare that for a particular people, when it says we the people, you don't know how law works. You think that people means everybody. Today we're talking about marriage and chains. We got to get this because we have a slave mindset, and we bring it into marriage, right? So hear what I'm saying. People by law does not mean person. It does not mean persons. It means a nation. Person is different than people. Persons is different than people. People means you have to be a nation. So when they say we the people, but they have slaves and they don't count women as people who can own, right? And they don't count even the landowners or the non-landowners as people. When they say we the people, that was only for a specific group of people who they considered to be part of their nation. Everybody else simply was what? Somebody who had a job. You worked for it. And if you had a job, you were tolerated. Just like today, just because you have a birth certificate, the birth certificate actually means you're not a real person. They say that your real identity was lost at sea when you signed it away. That's maritime law. Therefore, you are not really a person. And you're definitely not one of the people. So when you talk about constitutional rights, you got to figure out how to make sure that you on paper can actually be considered to be people, right? Whether you want to be part of their nation, I don't necessarily want to do that, or you want to find a way to make sure that you're part of a nation. You don't have to be part of the United States. That's why you can be a non-citizen national or a state's national. You don't have to be, but you don't know how to fill out a piece of paper and then live your life. See, they always have a right to try you, to test you, to see if you are what you say you are, right? You get mad at your husband because he might test you out. You see that you love me. Okay, love in my language means respect. So I'm waiting for you to respect me. But I do this and I do that and I give affection. That's fine and everything. But every once in a while, respect me. There's some things you're going to just have to do. Right? If you talking about a husband, right, he's geared for respect. That's his number one need. A woman's number one need, when you talk about respect and love for her, her number one need is going to be what? That's going to be security. Make me feel secure. Right? You can talk about how much you respect her and you can do this. She says, secure me. And are those bills taken care of? Is there gas in the car? Are there certain things I don't have to ask you to do? If the children start acting up, do I have to start talking to them, or do you already give them that look? She's talking about something different. See, but you're taking a slave mentality and not realizing what there is. They reversed your nature. Willie Lynch letter said that. Willie Lynch told you when he spoke to him over there in Virginia. He told you straight up. when he came down the Jamestown River and he explained how he could see there was a problem because all these slaves were being hung and he could smell the whiff of the slaves as he was going down the Jamestown River, named after King James, by the way. But he was going down the Jamestown River, seeing all these slaves hanging, and he could smell it in his nostrils. And he said, I could see the problem. Y'all have to keep killing these slaves because you haven't got them in line yet. They think that they have the right to be people. Let's teach you how to break their will. And we brought that mentality into our homes, into our marriages, into the food that we eat. You've been free, but you still eating chitterlings. So somebody tried to say that I was eating earlier. Reginald, right? You still eating chitlins. You only had to eat it because you needed to survive. Now you still eating stuff that's designed to be, you're putting stuff in your body that pigs are trying to expel. You see what I'm saying? Because you still bring that mentality in. So now you go back. So now they make this Declaration of Independence. That Declaration of Independence was against those who had capitalism, taxes coming. And those who realized what capitalism was realized that capitalism means that anybody can be made a slave. But if you have chattel slavery, only certain people can be slave masters and everybody else technically has to be a slave. Both systems really are dealing with the same kind of people on top, but one is easier for the non-slave owner and one is easier for the slave owner. They're both doing the same thing, but each system helps the other person out. So the British are fighting capitalism. Then you have later on or then you have the Americans, the new American, right, that we just described. They're fighting for chattel slavery. Chattel slavery wins out. This is where you have three-fifths compromise, by the way. You guys think three-fifths compromise meant that you were 60% of a human being. No, you were not considered to be people. You were not part of the nation. You were a slave. As a slave, you have to be taxed different. So they didn't want to be taxed as people. They want the South, especially since they had about 60% of the wealth, the land and everything as well. They had to pay. They came to this compromise. They would pay 60%. South would pay 40%. Three-fifths, two-fifths. All of a sudden, the North says, well, you guys got slaves down there. Why are we paying taxes on slaves and you guys aren't paying taxes on slaves? They said, we don't pay taxes on slaves because they're not people. They're right. And then they said, well, then why are you having us pay it? You should pay something. They said, okay, we'll come to a compromise. Look, they're property. We already have this three-fifths compromise. So what we'll do is we'll just say, hey, slaves can be paid for as, we pay three-fifths of taxes on them and you'll pay two-fifths of taxes on them. You think the three-fifths three-fifths compromise had to do with 60% of human being. No, you were 0%. How you get 60% of human? See, once again, because you're in the evolution, that's what they do. Well, you know that the mushroom has this much percentage of your DNA, so you and the mushroom must be the same. You know that the ape has something, and they lie about the percentages, by the way. Y'all remember in the 1990s on Time Magazine and all that, they kept coming up with all this stuff, and they'd have like a child on the front of Time, and then they'd have an ape next to it, and they'd be like, you and the apes share 99 point. That's what they tell you, right? They tell you that you and the apes share 99.9 whatever percent of your, or 99.6 or whatever it is, or some people say 97.90 98%, whatever it is. They'll say all that, right? They'll say all that, right? And then when you hear them say it, you got to sit there and listen, because they'll say that, but then when you learn, you say, well, wait a minute. When it comes to the X chromosome shares like 60 something percent with us, and the Y chromosome shares like 40 something percent DNA with us. Well, how do I get 60 something percent and 47%? But when you put it together, how are we in the apes 90 something percent? You hear what I'm saying? But if you want to take power, make sure that you start building a nation. I'm with you. Right? But there's a way to build a nation. And it's not to do with the way the people who have told you not to live or told you how not to have any power. We shouldn't do it that way. Right? His story is going to tell you what he wants. Our story should declare how we're going to make our own. And a lot of his story is based off of our story. He just omitted you from the book. You said it's our country, we built to the towers. Okay. What are you doing to make sure it's yours? Do you support your businesses? Do you support your land? You talk about our community. Okay. Where's your gas station? Our community. Okay. Where's your food? Our community. Okay. Where's your homes? Our community. Where's your neighborhood? You said no one cares. Okay, well then go somewhere where somebody actually agrees with you, because enough people seem to care. Right now it's at 626 just on TikTok alone. On YouTube we got some, and on Facebook we've got some. So, and some people watch this later on. So obviously somebody cares. If this is something that you want to be oblivious to, which means that you don't actually, you can't even be oblivious to it, because oblivious, yeah, you can be oblivious to it. Go somewhere else and praise Yah for you. Hallelujah. Right? See, we talk about this stuff, but we don't want to be what we talk about. Right? We got to get a mindset of this. Right? You got to get a mindset of this. You have to have this in your mind. Right? And so the person who says, well, how do you have black Confederates? Well, you don't know the story of that, right? So I just showed you how it was capitalism versus chattel slavery. And in your mind, what you do, the math that you're still going by, the math don't math, but the math you're going by is, okay, people just wanted to be free. Everybody wanted to go ahead and leave. The British just got beat and left, and we became Americans. And so now then the South just fought for states' rights. No, you got to realize not everybody wanted to be an American. Everybody knew that Americans were copper-colored people indigenous to the Americas. They were not Americans. They were English in an American colony. Really a British colony in the Americas. Let's say it like that. They were Brits who were Brits in a British colony in American land. Right? That's what they were doing. Right? That's what they were doing. That's legit what was being done. But in your mind, you just go, oh, okay, we were cool. Our people, our own, you don't even think of them as your own people, but you were the same people. It was a revolution. It was not a revolutionary war. It was, once again, it was a civil war. It was the first civil war, but you call it revolutionary war because you want to think, oh, we revolted. But no, a lot of people, and then these people died because, once again, the founding fathers, when they realized they were going to get killed, they got scared. And so they started saying we're Americans. They started pushing the rhetoric. They started putting it in the newspapers. They started writing articles about how English were just killing Americans, which was not true and stuff. And there was and a lot of people who fought against the Americans were what you would consider Americans. They were people who lived in the colonies and didn't agree with the fight. And they thought that something wild was going on. Yeah, we've already discussed that. I know it's native land, this and that, right? So, no shade. Just we do this for hours. So, if you miss something in the first hour, it doesn't mean it wasn't explained. Okay, but now that you deal with this, right? So now that you're dealing with this topic, right? Now you keep on going to where what happens now after all that happens, and the chattel slavery side, the now new Americans who are given the right to become Americans by a Moorish sultan. That's the only people that allowed America to become sovereign. Nobody would do business with America. They didn't want to do business with chattel slaves, especially when everybody's going towards capitalism. That's how that went. It wasn't until a Moroccan sultan allowed them to have sovereignty that now you could say that you were an American. And then that's why you had to come up with a new constitution. Remember, George Washington is not your first president. There were 8 presidents before George Washington. So says George Washington. He legit said that 2 of them were his favorite presidents when he was asked, who's your favorite president? So George Washington, then later on, after 1789, 1791 stuff happens, you had this new constitution that the Moroccan sultan signs off on, which is why you still have people who are Masons who still wear Moorish garb, right? Because it was a Moroccan sultan who allowed them to do that. Okay, right? So you have these Masons, George Washington Mason, Thomas Jefferson, all the Masons, right? Who get permission from the Moors. And thank you for the love, appreciate it. And now they have a nation. It's sovereign because another sovereign nation allowed them to be sovereign when they traded with them. Okay, so now what happens later on is that, you remember, not everybody agreed to this war. Even if everybody didn't fight it, not everybody agreed that they should stop being English, right? And basically that means not everybody agreed that they should give up on something that was coming called capitalism, and everybody should stay in chattel slavery. So what now starts to happen is, instead of the whole country being in slavery, even though everybody kept slaves, right? But the North starts trying to shift towards capitalism, where you got to basically just keep certain people on the bottom and you got to arrest them to make slaves. That's what you call the Union. The South is still dealing with a chattel slavery mentality. And so they begin to leave. And that was the fight. So when you say, why were there blacks that fought in the Confederacy? Those were slaves, right? And the person might not even made it because they probably were so busy saying what I was wrong. But that's why you had a wrong mentality. You don't know the story of it. You don't know how this progresses. You don't know where this coming from. You're just speaking on something without actually realizing it. So if you're not careful, once again, now you take that same mentality into your marriage, right? Jumping over the broom means that your marriage was something that you were supposed to be happy about, but it was supposed to be hidden. If your marriage was supposed to be hidden, it means that how you treated your husband and your wife was hidden. It means that your husband wasn't supposed to be around often. It means that your wife was not looking for a husband. She was supposed to be in charge of everything. I mean, she was supposed to raise the children basically by herself, and the husband from time to time, when he could sneak in, he could still come in, you know, and do a little bit and then roll out for months because he had to. But now we have an opportunity where that doesn't have to be the case. By the way, though, a lot of people still put themselves in that mentality. If you're going to be somebody in most places, now I will admit there's some places that started changing some things. In DC, I know for sure that they've changed some things because we helped some families in that position, right? But for a lot of people, a lot of places, if you're going to go and you're going to get help from the government and you're going to be on government assistance, or if you're going to be on government assistance to where they're going to, you know, you're going to be with HUD and HUD is going to provide a home for you and things of that nature, guess what you're going to have to go through, right? Guess what you're going to have to go through? Guess what you're gonna have to go through? You're gonna have to realize that the husband, the father, cannot stay with the wife and the children, right? Because you're still going through the same thing. You believe in your heart that you can't make it any other way because you don't think that it's possible for your community. How you doing, brother Christopher? Right? You think, and you have it in your heart where you think that you guys can't come out of this thing together and that you can't create your own community, your own society. Marriage is just, see, that's what I'm saying. See, because you're going through a Eurocentric prism. So you in your mind, yeah, here we go. Marriage was just a business deal. Still, if we are being real, anyone ever been married? Like, why does? I don't even exactly know what you're meaning by that, but I'm gonna attempt to go ahead and say what you mean, which is up. Don't get into marriage. Don't be married because it's a business deal. When the reality is that you don't have to be married to the state. Okay, Alpha. Whether you agree with it or not, I'm not worried about your agreement on everything. I'm just telling you a cultural perspective. You have a right to agree or disagree with whatever you want. It's not going to necessarily change my belief on it. Right? See, your mindset is marriage is bad because you're thinking you have to be married to the state. Well, common law is the way, but not even common law. Common law has to be approved by the state. You can just write your own marriage contract. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't think that you're free enough because you're a public citizen and not a private sovereign. So somebody who's thinking publicly, you think everything has to be done out in the public. So you think that I got to get married through the state. You don't have to get married through the state. Matter of fact, if you be honest, nobody's ever told you you had to get married through the state. You just have it in your mind that you have to because that's what you've seen, right? It's a term called de jure. De jure, right? Français de jure basically means that it's something that is considered to be legal, but it is really not something that's not real. You know, they actually have a term for that. It's a lawful term called de jure, DE space JURE. It literally means that you can that there are laws in the book. There are things that aren't even laws in the books. You just do them, and everybody considers them to be legal. And so, if you're not careful, they can become common law because everybody around you has made it common. So you just go by it, not realizing I don't have to do that. Right? That's like when people give birth to a baby, and you think that child has to have a birth certificate, and they have to have a social security number. They don't. They don't. But you believe they have to be in the state. If they don't belong to the state, then how can they be real? That's in your mind, right? How this child can't really exist without belonging to the state. Yeah, they can. Well, there'll be no proof of it. Yeah, they can. Take a picture, take a video, have people there as witnesses, have them sign an affidavit. An affidavit is a witness. Bring two affidavits and two witnesses. You said, how do I end my marriage to the state and switch to agreement of my own? If you've already gotten married through the state, it's not a huge deal. I would say as long as you know how to live properly as sovereign, and you can always, make sure that you write a letter Or I mean, it depends on how much you. I mean, if you really, really feel like you got to do it, make sure that you and your wife are going to be okay with it. Or you and your spouse, whichever way you're going, are going to be okay with it. Your wife is okay. Your husband's okay. Um, but make sure that you guys just get a divorce. Just as you get a divorce doesn't mean you can't still be together. Get a divorce, and if you're afraid that the divorce gonna mean somebody gonna try to roll out, then write your contract first and say that it is something that we're living by, even and living by before our divorce from the state, and even it is something that once on the date of our divorce from the state, it becomes 100% active, right? But you have rights. You just don't protect them. That's what laws do. Laws protect rights. You said, will our nation consider us married with our own contract? Some places will. Some places won't. Matter of fact, just to be honest with you, let's just keep it a buck. How many places, when you say you're married, are looking for you to give them a marriage certificate? I'm not giving lawful or legal advice right now. I'm not giving legal advice. I am giving lawful, I guess, but I'm not giving legal advice. But just being honest with you, right? Like, if you were to go, those of you who aren't married, some of y'all have done this before, where you go somewhere and you just want somebody to come and you say, "Oh, that's my wife." They ain't saying, "Well, where's your marriage certificate? Where's your marriage license?" No, I'm not giving legal advice. I'm giving lawful direction, but I'm not giving legal advice. It would behoove you to get the contract notarized for sure. Once it's notarized, then that means that somebody has said, like, I've seen it lawfully, right? But a contract, you got to understand, contracts. Some contracts a lot of times have more power than the Constitution itself, because the Constitution itself is designed to be able to uplift your contract. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so if you have contracts that are written, you have bylaws, right? If you go to churches have bylaws, right? So you have to learn the bylaws of the church. Why? Because if something were to happen lawfully or legally, they would need to go ahead and take those bylaws, and the trustee or the judge would therefore look at the trusts, right? The trustee of the bylaws is supposed to keep the bylaws, right? If somebody says we don't trust the trustee, you take that to the judge. The judge takes the place of trustee. Then he looks at what the trustor, the person who wrote out the trust, the bylaws stated, right, and what you guys signed off on and agreed on, and then he looks to see who's going to be the beneficiary. It's all law. It's all law. See, but you made the mistake. If you're going to become sovereign, we teach this in sovereignty. If you're going to become sovereign, what do we say to all people who've taken sovereignty one? Right? We say to you straight up, and sovereignty two. If you take classes, what do we say? First thing we say is what? You are the master. What does the word master mean? It means you are the teacher. That's what master's supposed to be. But see, we still dealing with masters. How you doing, Sister Denise? We still dealing with masters from prior mindset, to where they taught you how to be owned rather than taught you how to be free. But every sovereign is looking to something higher than themselves to be able to show them what freedom is. You said many people need to come all the way out. Sovereign doesn't have to report to their government. Yeah, they don't have to. You don't have to report anything. Like, if you take donations, you don't have to tell people what you do with your donations. People get mad, and then some people back down the pressure, be like, "Okay, we want you guys to keep donating." So you don't have to tell anybody what you do with donations, right? If you donate something to the government, they don't have to tell you what they do with it. Why do you have to tell them? But you have to know how it works. You don't know how to do. You don't know how to be lawful with it, right? When you live something long enough, it becomes second nature. Yeah. So Janet, when you take, oh, okay, right. So what about your business? What about your business? Is your business declared on paper with an EIN that says that you are nonprofit? Do you accept only donations? If so, then what's the problem? You can't live off of donations? I do. The stuff we build does. You just been told. See, you're saying something that's, once again, it's the jour. In your mindset, you think that something is actually true, but it's not. You've never heard anybody tell you that you can do that, but you can. Like, their whole company's built off of donations. Feed the children. You think that they get paid, or you think that they get donations? You see what I'm saying? And we bring this same mentality into the marriage. So somebody says, I got a vision and we're going to make it in this way. You say, I've never seen anybody do it, so it can't work like that. You've already failed in your marriage because now you can't support one another because you're going off of what somebody said. It's the jour. It's something that you think is considered to be legal, but ain't nothing on paper that says that has to be the only way. Yeah, look at the Red Cross. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people we could look at. If you have people, a lot of these people that are saying, help us with donations, this and that, or whatever, they live off of donations. They have thousands of people that live off of donations. Right? A lot of these pastors are living off of donations, just like I. You know, I mean, that's a great point. If you had, watch this, if you just had, if we picked a family and 100 people came together and said, we're going to donate $3 to that family to make sure they get on their feet for 2 months. That means we would give them $3,000 a month. They would get $6,000 in 2 months. Imagine if they were just trying to make sure they paid rent that was $450 a month. You have a mindset that you have to get paid versus creating something that you can have donated into. How you doing, Hotspot? Thanks for being part of the community. Oh, no, you're fine. I just started reading and I realized it wasn't directed towards me. That's all. You're great, Brother Chris. I appreciate you. You said if you become sovereign, does that mean you can no longer use the benefits of the state? Yeah, but you make sure that you deal with benefits and privilege, and you got to look up what benefits and privileges are, by the way. Right? Some benefits and privileges are things that are not given by the government. See, we don't create our own benefits. We don't have anything where we said we should create our own system, our own governance, our own this. And when somebody does something, they shouldn't have to go to the government. They should be able to come to us for support. We don't think like that. We don't have that set up. How you doing, Brother Eugene? And yes, Sister Monica, I agree. You see what I'm saying? So we don't think of it that way because in your mind, once again, I've never seen it done. So it can't happen. You're thinking de jour. De jour. You're thinking something that you think is legal or you think is the way it is just because you've never seen it, but it doesn't mean there's any agreement or anything written on paper that says it cannot happen. And we're bringing that same thing into our marriages. So if you have people who say that we can't do it in our marriage, then it means that you have a child that says I can't do it as a child, which means that child goes out and gets married again, says I can't do it in my marriage, which means they send their children to schools to say you can't do this, which means that we now send them into communities to say they can't do this, which means that our communities don't own anything because we say we can't do this. And now these communities that can't own anything provide people who are workers who say they can't do this, who become people who can't do this, who become married people who can't do this, who become children who can't do this, and we repeat the process. But who told you that you can't live off of what it is that you've been called to do? Sure, do you have to learn some paperwork stuff here and there? Yes. Sure, do you need to change some of your behavior? Yes. And that's really the problem, is that we're taking behaviors and worshiping the behavior. You won't release the behavior. You won't cast it down. You won't, as in the book of Joshua, we learned about Abraham, or Abraham at the time, and how he had to beat all the idols into submission to show his father that you're worshiping things that aren't real. And you get mad when something's broken, but it's not even real. You made an idol out of saying that you can't do it. That's really what the problem is. People say, well, if you say you can't, the people will say the person who says cannot is or the person that says they can are both right. I'm here to tell you that the person that says they cannot, you worship an idol of cannot. And somebody says you should destroy this idol, you should break it down, you should cause it to be different. Somebody says you should break this idol, stop worshiping this place of I cannot. And you keep saying, no, I got to worship it. I've never seen anybody stop worship. I've never seen anybody in my family not worship this idol. It's just made of wood and stone, right? I can't stop. It's just made of cloth. It's just got presidents on it. It's just a piece of paper. No, I got to keep worshiping this dollar. It's just some copper. It's just zinc. It's not even 100% copper and zinc anymore. No, I got to keep worshiping these coins. It's just a 9 to 5, right? Money doesn't grow on trees, but money's supposed to flow. You're supposed to spend it and sow it to be able to get more of it back. It's a currency. It's a current. It's a river. It's an ocean. It's a flow. No. I got to hold on to. I got to save every penny. That you got to. You hear what I'm saying? You have the mentality of holding on. You have a marriage in chains. You're chained to an idol. Shalom, Sister Raina. You're chained to an idol and won't let go. You're chained to Massa and won't let go. You're chained to an idol. This is Jick Joy. You're chained to an idol. You'll get mad. Sisters, know that I love you and know that we have a whole bunch of conversations on here about making sure that, we treat you with respect and stuff. So please don't fall into this thing of I'm patriarchy and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Just hear me for a second. If you've never heard me say this before, and those of you who know that we talk about marriage, we are very much so about making sure that we support and defend and make sure that our sisters feel secure and respected and feel the love and the actions that they need, right? But hear what I'm about to say. I got to put that out there because some of my sisters, they get on you before you even have a chance to say what you're trying to say, right? Hear what I'm about to say, okay? You ready? Why is it that we've gone from Queen Latifah, who I get, closet, lesbian anyways, and blah, blah, and this masculine, etc. But why is it we gone from Queen Latifah, who at least recognized that I need to show my community a certain standard of woman, and so she still gets a certain place in our hearts today? Why is it that we don't defend that sister as hard as we defend the sister that looks like a stripper? I didn't say the woman that doesn't wear clothes. I said we defend the sister. We idolize the sister. We idolize the little Kim. We grew up with the little Kim, the Foxy Brown, the Nicki Minaj, right? Now it's become the Cardi B, right? Now it's become Meg Thee Stallion. We idolize, right? The Beyonce, who will tell you about being natural without her natural hair, will tell you about being natural, making sure that she's got fake breasts and fake hips and fake butt now, right? Who's gone and lightened her skin. We idolize that. Well, if we're going to hold on to that idol, right, we idolize lashes made specifically. Now, I don't know if this part of it is true because some people call them cum lashes because they said they were there to catch cum. I don't think that that's necessarily what they are. I think because they were so long for the prostitutes, but they were something that French prostitutes wore. And we have our sisters walking around in eyelashes. And I've said this before, I say it again. Once again, it's your choice. Present yourself however you want to present yourself. I'm just trying to give you something that maybe you never thought about before. I know you ain't getting dressed for no man and blah, blah, and this and that or whatever. Okay, cool. You ain't getting dressed for nobody, getting dressed for you like the lashes, that up. And I'm telling you, somebody put that in your mind. And what I'm here to tell you is the culture it comes from is prostitution. And I'm here to tell you that no man has ever been sitting there and been looking at a girl and turned to his boy and been like, yo, man, them eyelashes over there banging. You know what I'm saying? Like, no man that I know. There's probably been one or two. I don't know. But I'm just saying, if there's a brother on here that can correct me, please tell me, right? But I'm just saying, I've never in my life been like, bro, you see them lashes over there? I've talked about them hips. I've noticed them breasts, right? Right? I noticed my wife, the thighs. I noticed a lot of different things. I've noticed my wife's face being beautiful, right? I've noticed her hair. I've noticed her feet. I've never once in my life been like, them lashes. Them lashes, though. I'm not saying you can't do you. I'm just trying to tell you, you're bringing stuff in to a relationship that doesn't necessarily mean anything to the person that you say you're going to be. So you're talking about two becoming one. So you don't want to hear this. But when you get married to somebody, well, then guess what? Like, you got to consider what they like too. Oh, see, you're a misogynist. No. I'm telling you how it works. Like, if I've got to hear you and address you, and even you get to tell me, like, look, when I started wearing my hair like this, I asked my wife permission. I said, I'm about to go into covenant, but also I know that I cannot do anything without making sure that you're okay with it. So I came to my wife and said, look, I'm about to grow my hair out. I'm about to grow my beard out. I'm not going to cut anything. I'm not going to let the razor touch my head. I'm not saying you have to do what I'm doing. I'm just saying that was my covenant personally. And I went and asked my wife. And she said, I love you either way. I love you. So you sexy. Whatever you do is sexy, right? As soon as she said that, boom. right? But I'm just saying, so I'm saying like we have to come into agreement on this. There's right, but there's other things that I do, or if I wear, there's certain colors I might go to buy, and she'll be like, I don't like that color. Right? If she says she don't like that color, guess what? I'll take it back. You know why? Because there's only two people I'm trying to make sure that I take care of. The Most High. I'm sorry, trying to please, rather, really, ultimately. I want to please many, but the only people I ultimately need to please is the Most High and my wife. So if my wife says, I don't like that, it seems to be a little feminine color on you. Even if I know our people wear the color, I'm like, well, you know what? It's my wife, and I'm not going to be laying down with anybody else. So I better make sure that my wife is comfortable with me, because she's decided that she's going to be faithful to me. So I better make sure, if she's going to be faithful to me, I need to run some stuff by her to make sure that she's still attracted. That's just common courtesy. That's just common decency. But somebody says, maybe you shouldn't do the lashes thing. And you go, well, if you can't love everything about me, well, fine. Are you wanting to give up anything about you? Because two got to become one. You got to become a living sacrifice. You don't want to hear that. And you want to call me a misogynist or whatever, but that's not true. I'm just telling you what it is. Like, this is something that I prefer. And you should really have these conversations. See, that's why we even talk about dating. A lot of you, dating is not even biblical. And it's not even necessary, because if you're trained what a husband or wife is, once you meet them and you know how to go through our ceremony and stuff, and what ceremony to even get you prepared, you're going to be prepared from birth to be a husband or wife. You'll know if somebody's a husband or wife upon meeting. You'll then go to prepare yourself for your husband. He'll go to prepare himself for you and a place for you to live in. And so when you actually finally have the ceremony and become married to become one, you're already ready to go. But you guys have dated behavior. Dating behavior is something that has nothing to do with us. It causes you in chain. Yeah, dating isn't in the Bible. No, dating is not biblical. People be like, what about courting? Look. Dating is not in the Bible. We can try to make this however way we want, but it's not in the Bible. Right? And this is what you do on dating. Remember, dating is dated. Right? If you go on a date, you're going on something that has an expiration. Right? Hence, if you go to the store and you buy some milk and you look on a date on it, why are you looking at the date? You're looking to see when it expires and when it should be sold by. Right? That's what you're looking for. You're looking for something that's going to expire. And that's what you guys do. You go out on a date and you say, okay, maybe we'll go to this club. Maybe we'll go to this. Maybe we'll do that. Right? And, but once we're finished, we're done. All right. It was nice. Okay, maybe we'll go back to the bedroom. Once we're finished, hopefully he'll call me back. Hopefully she'll call me back. Hopefully they don't ghost me. Right? But you didn't have a plan of, I'm only coming with this person if they deserve me until death do us part. And that's why a lot of people don't have successful marriages, because you think you're supposed to still date in marriage. Some of y'all will tell your person that you married to, when you cheat on me. You don't even say if. You say, when you cheat on me, I'm going to do da, because you're still in chains. How you doing, Urban Royalty? Right? You're still in chains. Right? So in your mind, you already have it set up that this person will do me wrong. Well, if in your mind you got married, had sex with, became one with somebody who's going to do you wrong, that's problematic on your part. I can't blame the other person for you not making sure that you were in proper standing. How you doing, Debbie Lee? You hear what I'm saying? I can't be mad at the brother when you never checked his resume to see if he was worthy of even being around. You dated him for 7, 8 years. He showed that he never wanted to be with you, never wanted to live with you, never wanted to have children with you. Then you end up having sex, and one of these times he has children with you, and now all of a sudden you're mad that he won't take care of the children. But he exhibited behavior long time ago showing you that he didn't want to take care of that. Yeah, some seasons are difficult, you plow through for sure, right? But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't make sure that we start instituting the institution of marriage. It's an institution. Marriage is institution. They keep talking about the greatest or the longest institution. The longest institution, one of the longest at least, is marriage. And technically, it's the longest one as far as we're concerned, because even we're supposed to be married to the Most High. You think you have marriage, but you have no institution. You mad when people talk about institutionalizing. No, you need some marriage institutionalized. You need to be able to say, this marriage has been something that's been an institution in our family for this many generations. Right? You need to be able to start. If you can't start, you need to be the first person. You need to be the first one in 10 generations. You need to set this thing up for 10 generations. How you doing, Serlene? You need to be the first person for 10 generations to say that for the next 10 generations, nobody will be divorced. Yes, that's why we said your first marriages was the most high. Thank you for just coming on. That's your way of saying hello, hello to you, right? So nobody would be divorced. Yeah, not all institutions are bad. That's what I'm saying. You need this to be institutionalized. Yeah, and people be giving us some red flags, and we just ignore it like it's nothing. We just ignore it like it's nothing. Oh, it's just the same. No, no. Like, you need this to be institutionalized. You need to hear this every day. You need this to become your belief system. You need to make this something that you do not leave. You need to make sure that this is something that you will not go wanting of. You don't know what marriage is. See, in our culture, the first ages 0 to 3. That means when somebody's in the womb to age 3, through age 3, they are supposed to be taught that they are a male or female. In the culture you live in today, they say that's wrong. In our culture, right, we teach a marriage from birth, from conception, as soon as the sperm hits the egg. Matter of fact, before the sperm hits the egg, before I knew thee, right, before your parents conceived you, right, before the sperm hit the egg, I knew thee. That meant that you were already being taken care of. See, a real parent is eating healthy to make sure that their sperm and their eggs are proper, so that when they come together, they're already taking care of a child. Before your parents knew one another, they knew. The word know means to have sex, to become one with one another. The Most High says, I was already intimate with you in the spirit. So you got to start taking care of your body as a parent before the baby's even born. Parenthood doesn't start when the sperm hits the egg. That's why you got to be pre-qualified. If you drunk and you have sex and you have fruit that comes out of being drunk, expect some problems to come with the baby, because the alcohol stays with the eggs for a long time. Right now, I'm not saying you can't drink. I'm saying if you're going to get drunk. You hear what I'm saying? See, in somebody else's culture, they say, oh, we can kill it because we don't even consider that to be a baby. Even after the baby is born, we can still kill the baby. Even up to 2 years old, some places you can still kill the baby. They call it, right? Because they believe that it's not a baby. They changed the definition of what the Most High made. They're trying to change natural law, right? But in our culture, before the baby was even conceived, they were known. Before the baby was even conceived, that's our culture. Their culture is different. Our culture is before I knew the Honorable Maya, the Most I knew our child. That's what's going on. So I have to get myself ready before I meet my wife. I have to. That's why in our culture, ages 0 to 3, right, train them on being a male and female. Ages 4 to 6, sons will be weaned from mama. Doesn't mean they're being weaned literally like you're still breastfeeding, but they'll be weaned from mama, separated a little bit, and the daughter's going to start getting closer. Why? Because ages 7 to 9, you become your parent's apprentice. Whatever daddy does, the son will do. Whatever mama does, the daughter will do. Ages 10 to 12, what's going to happen after that? Then we start giving them extreme education, right? We start really, really, really honing in on giving them extreme education. Why? Because ages 13 to 15, we're going to train them on what it is to be an adult male, and adult female. Right? This is our culture. It might not be everybody's culture. This is our culture. Now, what happens the next 3 years after that, ages 16 to 18, you're going to train them on what it is to be a father, or I'm sorry, to be a husband or a wife. They have to already be qualified. Then ages 19 to 21, you're going to train them on what it is to be a father or a mother. And you're also going to train them on what the other side is supposed to be too, because you got to know what the other side is. Now at age 21, you give the son his inheritance, because he's supposed to take whatever his daddy did and go out there and make the family proud. The wife, who's trained to be a mother as well, and who's an adult female, she still lives under the protection of the father in the house, but she can go have her job, do this, do that, come in, come out, or whatever, whatever. But the father's still supposed to be her protector and secure her, just like her husband will become the protector and secure her. And then when she's out somewhere and her husband's in his work and he sees some qualities in her, he studies her, he looks at her, he says, and he starts talking to her and to see if she's a wife. Then eventually he might say, I'd like for you to become my wife. Here are my bona fides. This is my vision. This is my mission. This is how I serve. This is what I do. This is my parents. This is my pedigree, whatever, right? And he gives those things and says, will you be part of this vision so we can build something greater than ourselves? If she decides, right, she don't have to decide in the moment, but if over time, even if she decides, I'll go ahead and do that because I've studied you, I see this, I talk to people about you, whatever, it looks like these things are true, then there's going to be a knocking ceremony. She's going to go back to her house. And people are going to be there as witnesses as well. Her father's going to be there, and mother, right? The father and mother are going to come over. The father representing his son from the other side, right? And they're going to come with witnesses as well. And he's going to knock on the door. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. That's a knocking ceremony. It's talking about marriage there, biblically speaking. See, we don't even recognize that. It's talking about a knocking ceremony. And then you go inside the door and you have and if you're let in, that's hopefully a great point, right? That's hopefully meaning we're going to move towards an agreement between the parents. Then what's going to happen is the father of the bride is going to pour, either some tea or some wine into a cup, inviting the father. The father of the groom is going the hopefully hope to be groom is going to pour it into the cup. The father of the bride hopefully accepts it. If they accept it, right, then that means that we can start talking about, do we know she's a wife? Do we know there's a husband? How are we cool as families coming together? This, that, or whatever, right? You said in your country you call it knock door. There you go, right? So there's a knock. You do all these things, right? Then after the ceremony is over, praise God, right? After the ceremony is over, then the bride, you guys only do this for 24 hours. You only do it for 24 hours in, the regular marriage. The 24 hours before, I won't see my husband and I won't see my wife until, we see each other. Then we see each other and then we kiss. And it means that we came together. And it means, in front of everybody, because it's very Victorian. So we kiss. That's almost like having sex in public. So everybody got to see our union, right? But after that, for us, what will happen is now the wife, she'll start to prepare herself for her husband. And the father and the mother are going to make sure, hey, are you ready for this? Are you prepared for this? We talk to them about this. They'll see each other from time to time, sure, but they're not going to come together. They're not really going to live together. They're preparing for each other. Meanwhile, the husband, right? So that's why she's going to be a virgin with her oil lit. That's a sign that she's been prepared. So when the husband comes back to knock again, so they can go and have a ceremony in front of everybody, like everybody knows, oh, okay, like, she's got oil in her lamp. She's prepared. She's ready, right? Meanwhile, the husband's going to go back to his father's house. Now, he has land of his own. Remember, he's already been given his inheritance. You don't wait till somebody dies to give them an inheritance. They've already given them the inheritance, right? That's why the prodigal father, right? The son was too young. He was like, hey, I want my inheritance now. I don't want to wait. And that was too early. He wasn't ready for it. He wasn't trained yet. That's why he went out and he failed. The prodigal son, that's what that's talking about. The prodigal son failed. Right. So then what happened? So he went back. The prodigal son, or the son, the groom, right, now goes back. By the way, once they had the knocking ceremony and everything was agreed, that was when they actually became affianced. That's when they became betrothed. That's when they became, fiance. Right. That's when they became a fiance, is when the ceremony was over. The witnesses came. They're the affidavit. That's the proof. That's the evidence. So whether they get a piece of paper at that point or not, there's witnesses to say that, yes, we know they're going to be married. We don't get a certificate for marriage in our culture. We get a certificate when we realize y'all are going to be affianced. Everybody was there. That's why a lot of people still to this day, you have this culture, you have this thing that still holds over, which says, hey, when I get ready to ask this person's hand in marriage, I want everybody to be there and see it. That's where that comes from, right? So now the groom is going back to his father's house. He's not going to go back to his land. He's going back to his father's house, and he builds an add-on, right? Beloved, let not your heart be troubled. In my father, if you believe in the Father, also believeth in me. In my Father's house there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would not have told you. I go to prepare a place for thee, that where I go, you will be there also, right? And because you know me, you know the way. Followers of the way, right? What he's saying is the son would go back to his father's house, and he would build an attachment to his father's house. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. That's what we call a mansion. You think a mansion today is just a big house. You think somebody got a big house on a lot of land, you call it a mansion. You call it a manor, right? You call it whatever, right? But a mansion is just an add-on to somebody else's house. So he goes back to his father's house and he builds on. And he builds on and he builds on. And he does not know the day nor the hour. No one knows the day nor the hour except the Father. That's why the son doesn't know the day or the hour, because the father is waiting for the house to be built to the specifications. He's talking about a cultural context. You think that literally means that Yahshua and the father can't be one, right? That's what you literally take it as. He's giving you what's called a parable. He's trying to show you with something that you can see every day in your culture, how it works in heaven. So he's saying, I'm building on a house. I'm building on an add-on. In my father's house, there are many mansions. There are many add-ons. House means family, by the way. House doubles for family. Tent, house, family, bits, bites, etc. They all mean the same thing. They mean family, house, tent, all one. So in my father's family, there are many mansions. There are many places for you guys to be able to come on. I'm building it. And I'm waiting for the Father to tell me as he's looking at what you guys are doing, because you're supposed to have oil in your lamp. You're supposed to give this word to the community. You're supposed to give this to your families. You're supposed to give this to your spouse. You're supposed to be living this. So as the Most High is watching to see if everybody has gotten this word in this ways and seen this interpretation live out all throughout the world and all throughout the planet, right? He says, okay, once I see you guys doing that, Yashla, once I see you guys doing that, those who are grafting, once I see you be an example where everybody's seeing y'all doing this and there's no question as to how this is supposed to work, and everybody's still out here to be disobedient, some of them, he says, that's when I look at my son and I say, okay, I see that they got it now. I'm ready to send you back for my bride. And he's coming back for a bride without spot or blemish. We're supposed to be preparing ourselves while he's meantime making sure he's preparing a place for us, so that when he comes back and this time he knocks on the door, hopefully you'll be one of the virgins, one of the ones that's pure, one of the ones that's chaste, one of the ones that's never had sex. I know some people even argue that, well, was Mary really a virgin? You don't know the context. If you know how marriage works, if Joseph was betrothed to Mary, hear what I'm saying, hear me well, because some people be arguing this, but you don't know the context. In our culture, if Joseph is betrothed to Mary, if Yosef is betrothed to Mariam, right? And all of a sudden she gets pregnant. If they were already having sex, but she gets pregnant, you got to recognize that Joseph is not going to necessarily be that perturbed, or there might be some doubt, but it won't be that much doubt. But Joseph, who has not had sex with Mary yet, because he's still supposed to be a virgin himself, is saying, how in the world did you get pregnant? You see how the culture takes over? You're using chains. You're chained by something else. You're not even able to think it through culturally. In our culture, you can't even be betrothed. So if they were betrothed, they were officially supposed to be being prepared. But Mary, while she's supposed to be in her father's house, ends up getting pregnant by somebody. Joseph says, well, it can't be me because we've never had sex. Right? That's the culture. So he's going to put her away. He's going to the place, he's going to do it privately, because he still loves her. So even though he feels like she sinned and did him dirty, and he might not be able to trust her, he doesn't want everybody to know that basically she's been out here being disobedient, because they might even try to stone her. Right? They might try to stone her. I see that scriptures about inheritance before death. I mean, we could kind of sort of say that for sure. We've inherited the scripture before we die, right? He gave it to us, right, when we were ready. But think about that. That's a great point. I got to dive into that. But yeah, so Yashvai is born of a virgin. When it says virgin, people want to say, oh, well, it could just mean this. It could. I mean, yes, you could be considered to be a virgin when you get your purity back, even after you get a divorce, but you have to go through some things to be considered to be chaste, which means you have to give up sex. But if Mary's supposed to be a virgin and she's never had sex with Joseph, Joseph is saying, oh yeah, I haven't had sex with her yet. That's what's culturally going on. I've gone to prepare a place for her, and before I could bring her into the place and we could become one, she's already pregnant. That's why the Most High had to send an angel to be like, yo, I know what it looks like. Right? He had to be like, Joseph, look, I know, I get it. I get what it looks like. Like, bruh, I get it. I comprehend it. And if you don't want to deal with you don't have to. But I'm just telling you, you probably want to stay with her because she's about to deal with the Messiah. This is the promise coming. I know that you probably thought it was a physical thing, because people will do the whole thing. Well, then why does it say that he was basically Judah by flesh? But you think that flesh literally mean, like, you don't like through Judah, through the lineage of Judah, right? What is the blood? See, this is why we got to get out of Judaism. We got to come back into what's ours, right? We got to get out of Judaism for a second. We got to come back into what's ours, right? In our culture, in Yashra, do we go by the bloodline of the father or the mother? Let's just keep it 100. Let's just keep it a buck. Do we go by the bloodline of the father or the mother? See, we're bringing other stuff into this that has us in chains. Do we go by the bloodline of the father or the mother? People say, up the mother, that's Judah, that's Jewish. Now, Kemet does that. There are some people that do that. Kemet does that. Cush kind of sort of did it. They didn't do it all over Kemet, but we go off of Abba. Now, remember, I don't even have my board here, but some of you see me write this out. There's Abba, Aleph, Bet, Aleph. There's Ama, Aleph, Mem, Aleph. Let's do it like this. I'll try to make it. If you don't know Hebrew characters, you're gonna miss it. What I'm saying. So let's do it like this. If I were to write out Abba, let's just write out A, B, A. If I write out Ama, we write out A, M, A. Abba is father, Ama is mother. Okay? So what does A or Aleph in our culture mean? The letter A comes from Aleph or Alav. Aleph actually means the father, the source, right? The one who is strong, the ox, the one who cultivates, etc. Okay. Bet, or the letter case B, put on its side, right? A lowercase b side means the son who comes out the right family. So you have A, B, A. You have father, son, father. You have son who comes out the right family, right? So you have inside the father, inside the source, Aleph, Aleph, or A, A. You have a letter B, which means the house that comes out the right, or the son that comes out the right family, who's going to descend into the garden of the mother. Mother is Ama, A-M-A, or Aleph, Mem, Aleph. A or Aleph, once again, means source. So you have an A on both sides, A-M-A, source on both sides. So now she's receiving this, and it's the source. She's receiving this family into her. And then what's in the middle? Water, blood, and spirit. So she's going to take the son, A-B-A, the B is going to descend down into the M, A-M-A, and she's going to have inside of her water the son who comes out the right family. Inside of her blood, she's going to carry the blood of what? The bloodline of this new person, right? Right? And inside the water, blood, spirit, she's going to carry the spirit, right? So the father is where it comes from, right? Now, why is it important that Joseph, hear what I'm saying and hear me well. Why is it important that Joseph, hear this now, why is it important that Joseph, even though it doesn't have sex with his wife, who he's married to on paper, but hasn't really become married to physically, why is it important that Joseph still is going to marry her, cover her, is already engaged? So he's already got the paperwork, but he hasn't laid down with her yet. Why is it important that he does that? It's because if Joseph, hear what I'm saying, if Joseph is simply the father of Yashva, if that's what we're going to do, or if a man is simply the father of Yashva, Mary just had sex with a man and that's it. What you're saying is that man covers man's sin. See, you already beat me to it, Brother Vincent. I love where your head is, right? Man covers man's sin. That's what you're trying to say. You're trying to say Joseph can sin just like the rest of us. So really, who cares about sin? Because anybody could have given birth to the Messiah, which means anybody could have died for us. But is that the truth? Is that what the word says? Is that what it even says in what you call the Old Testament? Can anybody be the Messiah? That's what you're trying to say, is that any man could have given birth to any man, and any man could have been the Messiah. Right? That's what we're saying. But when Joseph is betrothed to Mary, what it means is the two families have already agreed that they will become one, which means if Joseph is of Judah, because Mary's not of Judah, but if Joseph is of Judah, that means Mary is already considered to be of Judah. She's preparing herself to be in Judah. Right? Okay, so she's preparing herself to be in Judah. Oh, catching it? Right? So what has to happen is that Mary, we don't think about this because we don't think about law. I want you to come into this new relationship, right? I want you to come into the new mindset. I know you don't like this, sisters, but hear what I'm saying and hear me well. If you want your husband to be the priest and prophet of your home, that means that you have to become his first child. I know you don't like that. I'm talking spiritually. He's not going to treat you like a baby, right? What I'm saying, though, is if your husband's supposed to be the priest and prophet of your home, that means you must become his first child. That's why even when you guys do the walking down the aisle thing, when you walk down the aisle, this is what happens. What happens? Spiritually speaking, your father walks you down the aisle, right? The husband, who's not your husband yet, but the husband, is waiting down at the end. You get closer, and the father in your hand, right? The father then stops because everybody's still standing, and before everybody sits, the father has to take your hand and place it in the hand of his soon-to-be son-in-law, right? Why is that? Because what you're saying is spiritually, everything that I was as a father to her, now I'm not gonna go nowhere. She's still gonna be my baby, right? But everything I was as a father, every time that she had to cry and I was there, every time she wanted to sit on my lap, every time that she wanted to be, treated like a princess, you're gonna treat her like a queen, of course. But every time she wanted to be treated like, she wanted to get her nails done, she wanted the latest doll, she wanted to get this dress. Everything that I do is now on you, bro, and I'm doing it in front of all these witnesses to let her know. They're all gonna stand. See, you're standing in attention, waiting for the transference. You don't even know that. You just go through the motions, right? But you're standing in attention for the transference of spiritual authority. The Father is saying in front of everybody, I'm putting her in your hand. Now, you're still not her husband yet, but I'm saying in front of everybody, we've already come to an agreement as families. I'm letting everybody know all these witnesses are standing, just waiting for me to put this hand in your hand. And once I say, so I'll say, who gives this woman the way to be married, right? To be wed? The Father says, I do. Says the same thing you're going to say. I do, right? So he says in front of everybody, I do, right? As soon as he says I do, everybody's heard from the family that, hey, this family is allowed, we're coming together, which means that we're coming together through this bride being adopted from my spiritual authority into your spiritual authority. You hear that? Right? That's what's going on. I'm saying that's what's happening. The father or father figure is saying, I'm giving this away. This is now you're authorized, which means we're watching you. Everything that I did, hopefully everything I did well, right? But everything that I did, I trust you with this. Everything that I did, I honor you in this. Everything that I did, this is what's going to happen. You hear what I'm saying? Everything that I do, this is now yours. This is your responsibility. This is your responsibility. You are accountable for the way that I was held accountable. Now you are held accountable in the sight of Elohim and all these witnesses. And then you may be seated. Right? And during the whole ceremony, what's happening to that point, notice again, you don't rise again until something happens. So you guys sit down from that point. And what's happening is whoever is, if I'm over the ceremony, I'm supposed to represent Elohim. I'm supposed to be the man of Elohim, whoever, whatever position you want to give me in that moment, right? The Khalit, etc. I'm supposed to be in that position, and I'm supposed to be telling everybody and telling them, this is what you signed up for. This is the rules. Do you promise this? Do you promise that? Do you have any vows that you want to make? And we're going to do this in front of all these witnesses as well. They're all witnessing what you're going to say. Okay, cool. All right. With this wing ivy wed, I told you, I warned you, I gave you a warning. I told you what's about to happen to you. We've hopefully gone through coaching and everything. I gave you a warning. I told you what's going to happen. You said, bro, you okay with it? She said she's okay. I didn't just tell you it was going to be nice. I told you, look, for sickness, through sickness and health, right? For richer, for poorer, for better, for worse, the death do you. I told you this is what's going to happen. These things will happen to you. Are you prepared for this? Y'all, we've been through the training. I'm saying it in front of everybody now. You guys have had this implanted in you in your preparation phase. Are you aware that this is what you signed up for? Right? You say yes, yes. People say yes, not even thinking about what they're saying. You said your vows. Okay, we're going to hold you accountable to that. Are you ready to be held accountable? Yes, yes. Okay. Well, with this ring, I thee wed. With this ring, I thee wed. Okay, everybody stand. Or go ahead, rather, and you may now kiss your bride. Once you've kissed her, that's the Victorian way of them saying, like, you back then, if you kissed somebody in public, it was spicy, it was salacious. Ooh, they kissed out in public, right? So it's like them basically you witnessing them becoming one. That's why the kiss is important. That's why and people even do a peck still, right? But that's what that part of the ceremony is for. Then once we finish that, we turn towards everybody. We turn you towards everybody else. We turn you and have everybody look at you. And we say, now everybody get ready to rise up. Everybody rise. Now you're rising again. Why? Because now, and if you notice, this is what happens with my hands, by the way, too, or the person who's supposed to be there with the hands. You put one hand on the bottom. Really, I should put the right hand on the bottom. You put one hand on the bottom, right? And then what happens is you put the husband's hand inside your hand. You're saying this is your husband's hand. Here's your husband's hand. Then you put the wife's hand inside like this, and then she closes it up. Everything that's inside, everything that's just going to come out of you guys being together, the father is the ultimate foundation. You as the husband are her foundation. Or let's say it like this, you, the father, Abba, he is the dirt that the foundation will go into, right? He is the earth. He's the thing that you're going to put it in. And then you're going to put the husband inside that as the foundation. He's got to be solid, right? And then we got to put her inside, but then we put in the middle of hers, we put her hand on top of her own hand. Why are we doing that? We're putting that inside of our own hand because everything that's going to come out of you guys coming together is really going to be ultimately coming out of her womb. So you have to now I got to put another hand on top of I got to put his hand on top of her hand. And I've got to tell everybody, hey, you guys know that everything's going to come outside of her. So the husband's hands are there to protect hers, which means now I've got to put the Most High's hand on top of that. We got to make sure that you comprehend that everything comes out of that womb, which means that you as a husband must protect it, which means you as the husband must be obedient to the Most High. And if you keep that in order, these things will always stay connected. You'll always be able to have everything in hand. You'll always be able to be together, right? After we do that, then we have you turn towards everybody. Everybody rise. What was the last time you rise? You rose when everybody was coming down the aisle you rose when the bride came down with her father, and the father transferred authority, right? But you couldn't get authority until the one, Yahweh, that I'm representing Yahweh at that point, right? But Yahweh himself said, okay, right? Like I've taught you, like you keep holding each other's hands, right? The whole time. And then once you finish putting on the ring, now we go through all that stuff, hand, right? And everybody got their hand together. Now you've done that. You've kissed your bride and all that. You've lifted back the veil. The veil, by the way, representing that she's still chaste, right? And all these different things, that she's pure, that she's somebody that needs to be protected. We're even protecting her face from you until you are prepared to literally become one, right? And then you lift up the veil, in a sense, become one in front of everybody with witnesses, affidavit. You turn them around, and now everybody rises. As I said, I now present to you such and such and such and such as husband and wife, right? And then as they go forth, you let them go in front of you first, and then everybody else is supposed to be the first few witnesses and the people who are supposed to represent both sides of the family, and then you guys can start going, and that's the end of the ceremony. But guess what? As everybody leaves, peep game. People miss this part. As everybody leaves, as everybody comes in, and as everybody leaves, guess who's supposed to be the person that's there? We don't do this part right all the time, but guess who's supposed to be the person that's still there? While everybody leaves the ceremony, the person who represents Yahweh is supposed to still stay in place. Why? Because Yahweh doesn't leave. He'll never leave you nor forsake you in the spirit, but he still has to stay on the throne. So when you came and did this whole ceremony, you did it in front of the throne. You know what I'm saying? Like, so as everybody walks out, right? So even when we get ready for stuff, if I'm overweighted, you'll notice that I'll basically be taking care of everything from inside. Like if somebody needs something or this and that or whatever, like you got to come see me. I'm supposed to stay in the same spot. Like you got to come see about, if you got to holler at me, you got to holler at your boy right here, because I'm supposed to stay here until we do this. And then after we finish, if you need me, hey, you're going to have to wait till everybody exits, or at least enough of them exit that we've made the point that, look, I got to stay right here. The Most High, he can't leave his position. He's in all and with all, and he even told you, I got you covered. Now go ahead and leave. When you go ahead and leave, don't forget, I still got you covered. But I got to stay in position. Take this inheritance. See, now you've inherited this daughter. You've inherited my daughter, right? You've inherited my daughter. Go ahead and make sure you take her to the mansion. Go ahead and take her to eventually to your land. Go ahead and build stuff up. But never forget, right, that your covering comes from me. And that's what we were saying, that garden inside is protected. But see, now going back to Joseph and Mary, right? If you go back to Joseph and Mary, now we have something else that happens, right? So now people are saying this and that. Oh no, no. Like the culture is she would have been somebody who was there. Now we Brother Vincent really brought it up, the term adoption. A lot of people don't know what adopt means. If you're not part of my family, or even if you are part of my family, and I put you in a certain position, you by law are adopted into position. Did you catch that? Let me say that again. Let's rewind, right? If you are not my family or are part of my family, and I put you in a certain position in my life, I have adopted you. So if you are not my child by birth, but I say you are now my child, I have adopted you. If you are my child by birth, and I say you will be the next king in my family, you have right. You have now been adopted into the position of what? Next king. So you go to the head of the line as far as the princes and princesses. Whoever is adopted into the position has to be given authority by the person who's in position. So if Joseph and Mary, see, we don't know how the culture works. If Joseph and Mary or Joseph has betrothed or become betrothed to Mary, what has happened is Joseph has already adopted her into a position. Even if she's not the queen yet, she's still the queen in training when she's getting herself together, right? So she was adopted in. That's why everybody, even if you're Israel, you still got to be adopted. Just because you're born an Israelite doesn't mean you're going to do what you're supposed to do. You have to go through certain training, and you have to show that you're worthy of being adopted. You hear what I'm saying? Yeah, you got to be adopted. I was adopted. I am adopted. The adoption doesn't just only mean for the non-Israelite. All of us have to be adopted. If you're going to be a priest, you got to work to be adopted in the position. You know, in order to be a rabbi, you got to be 30 years old. That's why Yahshua is baptized at 30. If he's going to be a rabbi, if he's going to be a master, if he's going to be a master teacher, then guess what you got to do? He's got to be go through the process so that when he hits age 30, he can officially be adopted. That's why he's baptized at age 30. And John was somebody who was in an authoritative position. John says, I'm not worthy to even untie your shoes. What in the world? You know, you want me to baptize you? And Yahshua says, yeah, let it be done. It has to be done this way. It's time for me to be adopted. You're the only one in position to adopt me. You were created to adopt me in this moment. I need you to just adopt me. That's what was going on. You're thinking baptism only. The baptism was an adoption. Thank you, Romac. Appreciate it. Right? You're talking about that was the adoption. You know, that's what happened. He was adopted. Hallelujah, right? He was adopted into it. He was adopted into position. But wait a minute, he was the son of Elohim. Blah blah. Yeah, he still had to follow the law. He still had to be adopted in. Adopter or that. Mm-hmm. He had to be adopted in. So when Mary was betrothed to Joseph, she was already adopted into the family. Why? Because it's already via flesh. Joseph, who adopted her in. So Mary, even though she was still living at her father's house, she was still doing what? She was still being prepared for her husband, who's spiritually going to become her father. You think the word flesh means that they got to be the same family, but they were the same family. You missed it. So even when you argue that, you're not arguing according to culture. You're arguing according to something else. I'm just putting it out there. I know some people are going to disagree with me. They're going to tell you I'm wrong, this and that. Look, I'm telling you. See, they can't tell you about the knocking ceremony, though. They can't tell you about betrothal when it starts. They can't tell you about what marriage is. They don't tell you about ages 0 to 3 and 4 to 6 and 7 to 9 all the way up to 21. They don't tell because we don't know it. We're going by somebody else's prism. Why? Because the person who enslaved us. So you hear the word virgin, and in your mind, and then you read something in Greek. By the way, you're not even reading Hebrew terms. You're reading it in the Greek. That's what they use most of the time. It's the Strong's Concordance, which means that you're reading a Greek word, and then you're trying to use every single meaning of that word in one context, and not even thinking to yourself, what did that Greek word mean in Hebrew first when it was originally written? And what did the Hebrew people mean when they actually used it? And when they used it, then how should I interpret it? Because not everybody everything can be transliterated or translated, right? But and certain things definitely cannot be interpreted correctly without culture. That is part of how you get the definition of interpretation. Look up the lawful definition of interpretation, and you will discover you must know who the person is, when the person spoke, what they were doing, where did they live, what language did they speak, what did they mean, etc. What was the circumstance? If you don't have all those things together, you cannot interpret it. But once again, because people don't like law, we don't look for law. Even the people who are trying to say they live by the law will still misinterpret the word because they're not in the law. And thank you for the love. Appreciate it. That's real talk. Oh, but praise Yah. We're coming out of this. We're breaking every chain, including the chains around your marriage. It's difficult to walk. I can vouch as somebody who's been in chains, in prison before. It's difficult to walk with chains around your arms. Even it's more difficult to walk with chains around your arms than it is to walk freely. It's difficult to walk. I can speak to experience by this. When you have chains around your ankles connected to the chains around your arms, it's difficult. It's difficult to walk when they then chain you one to another. So you chained around your ankles and your arms, and then you got to be chained to the person in front of you, trying to get to and from. Then they chain you to the bus that you sit on. You got to sit there chained. Then they chain you, right, again to each other, so you can go ahead and walk off the bus and get, like, when you see the people that come in, especially if they're in the orange suits and all that stuff, or whatever suits they wearing, orange, blue, yellow, I don't know. But when you see them walking in to court, right, they had to walk chained to somebody else. See, when somebody's chained, you never just coming in by yourself. You're always chained to somebody else. You said, by the way, you're viewing for personal page versus your business page. Oh, okay. House of Locks. I see you. Amen. Praise y'all for breaking off the chains. All right, Barry, be safe out there. And thank you for being part of the community, Prima Donna. Right? You got to see what's going on. Right? Like when you see somebody in chains, never assume that person came by themselves, even if you see them by themselves. See, what happens usually is either behind the scenes or underground or something, some kind of combination of it. When you go to a courthouse, they have jail cells in there. The average person doesn't see the jail cells, so they don't know they're there. But when you see the person coming out in chains, it means that you walked into a prison already. You walked into a jail already. You thought you walked into a courthouse. You walked into a prison. Like, a lot of people don't know this. When you go to certain stadiums, sports stadiums, because people can get out of control and stuff, they have jail cells in there. Slave masters are very good at making sure that they keep the population in order. And you go into a place where they have owners. And so they have jail cells. So when you see somebody in there or whatever, and you see them get arrested or you see them in cuffs or something like that, I need you to comprehend there's a place where there's a bunch of people like that. And they even have in some of them, I know, like in Philly, they do in Philadelphia, where the Philadelphia Eagles play. But in certain places, they even have court rooms in there, to where as soon as somebody does something before the game ends, they can already be ready to say, yo, you're going to jail. They got holding cells in some public schools. I just found that out. I haven't studied it, so I can't speak on it, but I just found that out. Where you got schools that got jails in them, jail cells. Prison to pipeline is more than what people think, but we don't study. Once again, we don't live this. We don't look. We don't see, is there any truth? So we've got this thing. All these things, they are in our life. So we got to ask ourselves. It's weird. We talk about slavery in every other area, but we never talk about how it affects the house. How you doing, Kidaria? We never talk about how does it affect the house. You know, it was planned. And school is just like jail. Yeah, it prepares you for it, for real. If you ever go to jail or you ever go to prison, I promise you, like, the way that they run stuff in school is going to be the way that they run stuff in jail. Only difference is that there's no teachers. There's no teachers. There's recess. You can go in the yard. And if you good little boys and girls, we'll let you go in the yard longer. If you got to stay in the corner, they don't just put a dunce cap on you. They beat you up. They don't feed you, and they throw you in the hole. Oh, you got to be strong to live in the hole. The hole will break some people in 2 hours. Some people can last 2 months. And then that person that has to do weird behavior, being by themselves, sometimes starving for a week and all this stuff at a time, they come out of the hole, never the same again. And then they leave prison sometimes, and then they get back into society. They never leave. You said, what about this? What about don't commit crimes? Yeah, that's thank you for being on. Hello to you. It's a foolish statement because we're not talking about black versus white. I'm talking about literally how people are talking about in marriage. You saw a picture and made an assumption. How about not make an assumption and be imprisoned by a racist mentality? How about that? Right? You know, you have so much hatred in your heart for yourself and for others. You know, praying for you. You have blessed that person and allowed them to be able to have more reminders and to let them know from now on not to assume things and to be able to see a person for who they are. You know, you gotta realize this, right? The person heard me talking about jail and saw a picture and decided that they knew what we were talking about. You got to see this. This is an issue. It's a sickness, as Abba would say, and Abba and preach. This is a sickness, and we do not want it. Right? It is sick. You have dis-ease. You're not at ease. We're trying to get you to get your marriages together, and you're worried about. We're trying to get you to get your marriage together. You're worried about, you know, I don't see enough white people being represented or white people being put down. I can tell you this: my marriage functions very well without having to think about white people. It doesn't mean that a white person, can't be a positive thing around my marriage. It just means that I don't think about anybody outside my wife to make my marriage work. How do you know if you're meant to marry? It ultimately goes back to the first thing: are you a wife of Yahweh? See, watch this. We put the stuff on Yahweh as far as is he going to choose our spouse. That's I told you. I've said this before. People don't believe me. He's not going to choose your spouse for you because you have free will. He will give you the tools and say use those tools. So I can't really be like, I can go through something with you and tell you like, oh, when we're going through this marital coaching, like that's not really a husband, that's not really a wife. Like I can do some one-on-one and be like, ooh, that's not wife like, thought process, this and that or whatever. That's not husband like material that you're trying to give. But he's allowed you to be free, right? You have free will. So if a husband presents himself, you have to look at it, and if anything, you go to him in prayer as far as, and what I seen correct as far as him being a husband, and if I were to be with him, is this mission something that's compatible with what you've told me I'm supposed to be? Because if it's not compatible with something you've told me I'm supposed to be, then I will ultimately revolt. I'll ultimately go against it because it has nothing to do with me. But the Most High, as much as we wanted to be there, he didn't force Adam into marriage. He had Adam first see that he needed to become one with somebody. Adam was around before there was a wife. He had to work. Adam was in his work. Adam thought everything was fine. Adam was. It didn't say Adam was sad and every day he walked around and he saw all these other. No, like Adam, he gave the most gave Adam specific work to prepare him for him to prepare him for that cloth to have him in a place where he can go. Oh, I actually need a wife, and I need her to have the same mission I have. So that's why he names the animals. The Most High literally gave him work that said, name all these animals. And I want you to see something, Adam. Adam names them. He sees this and he starts looking around. He starts realizing all these animals have a helpmeet except me. Then the Most High says, I got you now. It's not good for you to be alone, the word alone, or it's not righteous for you. It's not constitutional for you to be alone. What does the word alone mean? It's a compound word, all in one. You said just because I mute doesn't make me right. Okay, I haven't muted anybody, but if the people in the community are muting you, you might want to ask yourself what you're doing that would be offensive to some. But I legit haven't even done. I think I have. I think I did mute somebody last night. Right? Somebody might have muted you now. Right? But I didn't mute you. Right? Okay, you got blocked. See, so there you go. But it was often weird. Like people don't recognize. Like I've taken that out of my hands. If you guys think somebody should stay, y'all think they should stay, unless it's something that I have to deal with really quick because they're doing something that's messed up, right? But when we talk about this stuff, going back to it, yeah. So see, I don't even remember where was I? Where was I? Oh, Adam. So Adam is given a work, and in his work, he realizes the necessity of a helpmeet. And then the Most High says, "See, I tried to tell you, son, it's not righteous for you to be all in one. We call that word alone. I will make for you a helpmeet." And puts him to sleep and takes out of him, right? He only gave him back himself. See, so he took something in Adam's work. Adam woke up, he rested in his work. And when he woke up out of rest, he realizes that the thing that woke him up, just like remember, sin takes us takes Yahweh out of rest. Well, Adam woke up. The only thing that took him out of rest was the fact that he was not all in. He wasn't one anymore. And so he looked over and he woke up and saw his wife and said, wow, this is flesh of my bone, flesh of my flesh. This is me. I've been looking for this. This is the missing piece. to make me whole again and to give me a helpmate at the same time. I was whole, but wasn't really holy, because how can I be whole without something that helps me to multiply and move on things? But now that I've got somebody to help me, oh, we're going to get this thing on. It's going to be on and popping. Right. And so now that we can also have seed that's going to help us, we're going to have this thing going and going and going and going and going. Right. And so now he says, I get it. In my work, I rested in it. And the only thing that woke me up was when I was trying to do it all by myself. But I can't do this all by myself. So my wife is going to help me to be complete and to do things that I can't do within myself. And then he says, for this cause, he spoke over all of us, for this cause, will a man, right, leave his mom and dad, and they'll cleave to his wife. You said, how do I feel about it? Once again, I feel like you should be led. Now, if somebody's sick and they can't have children, I mean, that's something that we need to look into and stuff like that. But if somebody, chooses to, that's your choice. You have free will, right? I would say make sure that you're married to your husband. You should still be married. You should still be a wife. People get that twisted. I'm not a wife. No. You're like, I'm a wife. I'm married to your husband myself. That's how I know how to treat my wife. That's when I know I've gone too far, because the Most High has never done some of that stuff. So if I start yelling and complaining and fussing and cussing and doing stuff, and Yahweh doesn't do that towards me, then why would I do it towards my wife? Everybody should be married to the Most High. But if you're talking about having children, well, the Bible even talks about, by the way, that you can have children that aren't yours. It talks about a lot of women that never had physical children and yet had many children. We got a lot of women in my community that grew around that didn't have physical children, but we all called her mom. We called her mama. Right? But it's about being led. First of all, know what a husband and wife is. Right? Right? At least know what a husband or wife is first. So that if a husband presents himself, you can at least know if he's a husband, and then you can consider, are you a wife? And then say to yourself, well, am I a wife that's qualified to help him with his mission? And also, is he a husband qualified to secure mine? You see? You see what I'm saying? So when we're talking about these things, we have to be honest. We got to be real about it. And we're having a lot of non-discussions become discussion. They should have never been discussion. You said that my husband and I had this teaching and understanding before we were married, could have lasted. I'm not, and a lot of people don't even think about that. That's why it's, we don't think about preparation. We don't eat the things of Yah, just like we don't eat food preparing for sickness. We just eat food because it's on sale. We eat food because I like chicken nuggets. I mean, I don't know if it's chicken or not, but I like chicken nuggets. I don't know what the formula is. I don't know why it's pink inside and everything, even when they cook it. But I like chicken nuggets. I don't know why it's got slime and everything, but that's how we eat. I like it. But love is not like. Even when you don't like yourself, you still gotta love your wife. Even when you don't like yourself, you still gotta love your husband. Even when you don't like what comes with a woman's period, you still have to love your wife and respect the fact that she's having a dead body inside her right now, crying up from the garden on the inside. So of course she's having some hormone issues. You got to love your wife. I don't like the fact that she's mean. Love her. I don't like the fact that when I talk to him, he always does that thing with his he always sucking his teeth. Love him. Love him. Well, I don't think that the Most High will want me to have to deal with this and that or whatever. He died for you when you were still out there sinning on purpose. You used to make it your purpose to sin. Stop acting like you've always been this new creature and you've never had any. You was out there on purpose sinning. Like you was out there sinning, hoping nobody in church would see you, and then coming to church and smelling, sweating alcohol out your pores, and everybody thought you had the spirit, but you was just swaying because you couldn't keep your balance. I'm just saying, like don't forget where you came from. I can't. They want me to forgive them. I didn't say you got to trust them, but yeah, you got to forgive them. Get that off you. Because if you won't forgive them, now it's your burden. And we always preach here the burden of proof. Get that off you. You know what I'm saying? Get that off you. Explain crime from the garden. Basically, remember Abel was killed by Cain. And the Most High came to Cain and said, you know, where's your brother? And he basically said, like, what, am I my brother's keeper? Like, am I supposed to watch over him? I'm not his mama. I'm not his daddy. All right. And then he said, look, Cain, his blood cries up from the ground. How you doing, Brother Trace? Right. So remember, when that happened, well, same thing kind of is happening. The woman's womb is her garden. Right. It even talks, Solomon even says, you know, forgive me if this is too much information for some, but Solomon even says, like, let me eat from your garden. In the Song of Solomon, he's describing her breast and her hair and her teeth and her hips and all this stuff. He says, let me eat from your garden. He's talking about, you know, do the math. Right. So when we got children listening, so sometimes I got to be careful what I speak on to the level I go in. But yeah, so but like her garden is her womb, right? Her garden is her womb, right? And so anything that's entering in there, all that, whatever, right? So sperm is supposed to hit the egg. And by the way, women technically were not supposed to lose eggs unless you had control over that system in your body, right? The further we've gotten away from creation and from the beginning, and especially a lot of stuff that we eat, the faster and the sooner and the more eggs even are released and less eggs that are even developed. You know, but a woman was designed to be able to give birth forever in her original design, right? Um, so now as the eggs come out, every time the egg comes out, because the egg was supposed to come out to meet sperm. So what was supposed to initiate the egg initially was supposed to be what? Sex. Even when you have sex, like the rocking back and forth that one does, you'll discover that that you know sends signals to the womb. That's why even a lot of people have an orgasm is because of the rocking back and forth, right? But so if the egg is released, it's supposed to be because sperm is about to be released. Now it just happens every month, right? But so the egg, and it's never replenished as well, right? So now it happens every month. So now as it happens every month, right, on the cycle of every new moon, right, basically, or around, you know, based off a new moon once a month, you know, so it's not really once every month literally, right? It's like once every 28 days or so you'll go through, you know, 28, 29 days or so, 30 days sometimes, but you know, somewhere around there you have an average of about 28 days usually to where you're going to have your next period, right? Well, when you start going through that or whatever, if there's no sperm to be able to connect with the egg, that means there's no life that's going to be fed to it. There's no direction, right? Mothers have to be protected, so they lay down the law, and anything that's going to deal with law, the only thing that can enter into law for protection is direction. So the father's seed is supposed to go inside her to be able to get to the egg, right? If no seed gets to the egg, then it means that inside her womb now this life begins to die. All right, this life begins to die. Okay, 22 to 28 days. Okay, thank you. So this life begins to die. And when this life begins to die, what happens? Now all of a sudden you go through hormonal issues. Why? Because your body was prepared to literally tell itself to not kill the sperm and the egg once they meet, because technically your baby could be looked at as a parasite, right? Technically, your baby should be killed in the body because it would consider it to be a parasite. It's going to leach onto your body. But your body has gone through already sending a signal saying, I'm open for business, basically. Like I'm open, like I'm feeling a certain way. You feeling certain hormones even before that happens. You're already you know when you're like in the mood, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So then right. Well, that's what your body does. Your body has to send a signal. You know that, right? Like inside your brain, your body has to actually tell your brain has to say, hey, probably going to get pregnant, and if for sure we get pregnant, hey, don't kill this. Your body as a woman literally tells your body to stop doing that. Like says, don't kill this baby. Like so when that happens, your body was preparing for that, and when the egg dies, right, then it literally turns into blood in the garden, right? Blood crying up from the ground. So we only think about the physical aspect as far as just hormonal imbalance, but there's a spiritual issue going on, right? And yeah, it looks for it monthly. New life, new moon, new way of thought process, new spirit, new holy days, etc. Right? Like new creature. Every egg that leaves is a creature, a creation. Yeah, there's an afterbirth during the delivery, the second birth. Menstruation is death of life, things like that. Yeah, right. Your body is building up for that. Your body was created was looking for twins. even if it's just one baby. You know how they say like every baby had a twin, this and that? Well, your body already has twins. It's just one twin is literally designed to make sure the other one might live. See, now we just go, oh, that's afterbirth. We just toss it to the side. But you're not even supposed to cut the umbilical. That's why the umbilical cord is hard to cut, right? It's not easy to cut an umbilical cord. Anybody who's cut the umbilical cord, you know it's not easy to cut. Why? Because the umbilical cord is still supposed to connect twin to the twin, the birth, the afterbirth, if you will, to the newborn baby. Right? They're still supposed to live with each other until it's finally become a living sacrifice. It's finally sacrificed so that baby might live. And then once it starts to die, it gives a signal and says, okay, umbilical cord, you can go ahead and come off. And when the umbilical cord falls off, then you know the baby's 100% ready for just food from the mother. Right? So baby's actually supposed to eat from the mother, but a lot of mothers, especially when they give birth for the first time, they can't give the milk, right? So they'll just say, put the baby on formula. Well, you give colostrum because the baby's still supposed to do what? It's supposed to be eating from the umbilical cord. So even if you can only give colostrum, the colostrum has a lot of stuff that's still going to help the baby and get it used to sucking from the breast. You still want them to latch on, even if you're not giving the milk. But it doesn't matter, even if the food's not coming yet. The baby's used to preparing itself to eat from the breast. Meanwhile, or sorry, their self. I said it. Excuse me. Their self from the breast. Meanwhile, they're still being fed the way they've always been fed. That's how it used to be. That's how it used to be. Like, I'm not making that up. Like, a lot of people, like everybody used to do that. You didn't cut the umbilical cord, right? You didn't cut that off. You let it go. You let it nourish the baby, right? And if you don't believe me, when they take your afterbirth, they bag it up. After they inspect it, they bag it up. They cut it up. They sell it. They make money off it. They put it in stuff to give people nourishment that they need. So why is it that other people can use it as nourishment, but you think it's supposed to be cut from your baby? Yeah, they take it and they sell it. Now you tell me. Because somebody out there be like, oh, you just making that up. That's not real. That's not. No, no. Like, I'm not making that up at all. Right? Like, that cord is life. That cord is everything. That'll help your baby to think better. It'll help your baby to clot blood. It'll help your baby to fight infection better. Better, like, but our marriage, our system is what? In chains. We still have a slavery mentality where your baby is now a slave. Your baby can't even eat what they were designed to eat. Lord of mercy. Right? Yahweh, be merciful, right? Like, your baby can't even eat what they're designed to eat. Thank you, lovingly, appreciate it. Lovingly, appreciate it. Right? Your baby's supposed to eat a certain way and they can't even eat. Your baby's supposed to eat a certain way, can't even eat. Your baby was not supposed to be born with the mother on his back. No wonder it's so difficult for you to push. It wasn't until recently in the history of mankind that people thought it was smart to put a woman's legs up in the air and to have her lay on her back and think that she wasn't going to have any problems giving birth. That's new. That's that new. That's that new. Okay, Febu triple X, what are you saying that's causing them to do it? I don't know. I missed it. Right? But you're on now. Thank you so much for being back on. Right? But that's that new. That's that new formula, that new recipe. It used to be that you had birthing stools. Go look up a birthing stool, see what that is. See if I'm making that up. It makes sense that you'd have a birthing stool. By the way, guess what the birthing stool looks like? Looks like a toilet seat. Why? Because you're supposed to, when you use the toilet, technically you're supposed to have your legs up because it opens and it opens passageways. It opens the way out for you both vaginally and as far as even your anally as well. It opens the stuff up. And guess what's supposed to happen when your baby's born? Fecal matter is supposed to hit your baby. Right? It's supposed to hit the baby, and when it hits the baby, it turns on their immune system. Why can't a lot of babies fight illness and disease, and they get fevers, but they're not moving? Because a baby's supposed to have a fever and still move. As long as the baby is still moving, the baby can be 104, 105 and still be fine. As long as they're moving around, that means that their immune system is shutting on, and it's learning how to fight stuff for the first time. I mean, in a sense, yeah, these are my kin folks, right? Where you're talking about, marriage and chains. See, even when you give birth, you're giving birth to a baby in chains. They tag your baby, don't they? Not only do they give them shots, but they literally put something around their wrist, around their ankle. This is our property. And you can't leave with their property unless you have all the right things that they say you have to have, unless you know how to do your paperwork. Or you just decide that you're not gonna leave, or you're gonna just give birth in your own place. Yeah, first birthing instant squad, because that's what you're supposed to do. That's how you design. And then they're gonna drug you. They're gonna shoot medicine, but they're gonna shoot drugs and drug you into your spine. But if your baby eats from you, then guess what happens? When you drug the mama, you drug the baby. So now you got a drug mama and a drug baby. You got two druggies out here trying to create a birth, trying to go through birth. You got two drunk people. You got two drug people out here out of their mind. And then they say push. And you think that you're pushing, but you can't put. How can you push correctly if you can't feel? The pain is supposed to help you with the process. You need to know the pain, where the baby's at. You saying, where's the baby? You can't feel the baby. You can't feel the baby. You can't feel him pushing out the baby. I used to think that. Like, I used to think to myself, you can't feel the baby being pushed. But then it makes sense. Like, you think, because they're in pain, but they don't know where the baby's at. And I'd be like, how do they not know where the baby's at, but they're in such pain? It's because you drugged. Just because you drugged doesn't mean you can't feel any pain. But you would think that the person pushing should be able to tell you where the baby is. I've heard of women asking, I've heard women ask, like, is the baby out? Sometimes they're still pushing, they're pushing, and the doctor has to tell them, oh, it's out. And she's still trying to push. Or when they say don't push yet. I don't know about that experience, but I can only imagine what that it must feel like. I don't know, right? I'm just saying, right? Like, it's because you were drugged. They don't even think we're so used to it that now sisters will tell other sisters, "Hey, girl, I know you want to have birth naturally and everything, but I'm just saying, when you start feeling that pain, anesthesia's your friend." Like, they say stuff to you like that, and we don't realize that's problematic because the anesthesia is a drug. You said it's not our place until I put it out. Hush. Um, how many births have you been present at? And how many sisters have you listened to tell you about birth? And sisters, if you feel like I should shut up about it, if I'm not telling the truth about birth, then please tell me if I'm completely out of my mind. But there are doctors who are men who help women to give birth. Should they not help a woman who's getting ready to give birth because they've never pushed one out? Or do you only think that it's okay now or to help one if a white person says you're a doctor? Right? That might be your master. That's not mine. Oh, no, not me. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah. So I don't know. I lost the person, whoever that was. But yeah, I think it's okay to talk about something that's truthful. And if sisters on here need to correct me, then I'll still be corrected, for sure. Right? But that's you trying to, that's when people call us simps. I don't think we should either. I don't think simping is loving my wife, but that's when people call you a simp. When you're doing stuff that a woman doesn't even need you to argue, nor does she want you to argue. Right? Argue for her being taken care of, and argue for her making sure that she can push out a baby correctly where there's less pain. I'm literally telling you how to make sure there's less pain on our sisters, and your response is, did you push one out? That's You know, we see what I'm saying? Marriage in chains, our community in chains. You see what I'm saying? Like we're chained up. You said benefiting off others' ignorance should be criminal. At least give people the opportunity to learn first, then all them to make a choice, or then allow them to make a choice. Yeah, you would think so, but that's why even by law, technically, as long as they say the information's out there, it's on you. That's what the Nuremberg Code is about. As long as the information's out there, that's on you. Yeah, that's fine. You know, and that brother, you know, I don't even know if it's a brother or sister. You said C-section are mandatory in some cases, though. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they are. Now, if you want to study C-sections, you know that C-sections came from, I believe it's Uganda. So that's where they got it from. So if you actually want to know why C-sections were used initially, and there's a lot of people that they just give you C-sections, period. Like you got to be careful. Sometimes they'll be like, well, you've had a C-section before, and since you had the first C-section, you can't give a natural birth. That's not true. It's not true at all. Oh, well, you know, you had an abortion before, so you can't have a natural birth. No, that's not true. Not true. Right? Remember, I told you some of this stuff is de jure, DE space JURE. En anglais, it literally means that it is something considered to be legal or something considered to be real, but it's really not. Right? So there's a lot of stuff that we've learned that we've held on to. Hope you're all right, babe. There's a lot of things that we held on to, and we held on to them specifically because watch this. Somebody never told us we couldn't do it, but nobody ever told us we could. Nobody ever told us it was okay to stand up and say, this is our culture. This is our story. But nobody told us that we didn't, nobody told us we didn't have to follow his story. You said C-section was originally done because they wanted to cut the baby out to sacrifice. That's what you read. It depends on who you read it from. The people of Uganda, they did it only in specific reasons. At least those particular people, when people found out about it. Now you got to remember too, a lot of people that write the history, they try to write it out as far as we were savages. Savages mean that we didn't fit into their civilization or we didn't have a civilization. That's why you got to be careful. If somebody calls you a savage, fine, call me a savage because I don't fit into the United States corporation. So technically, I am a savage. That's why I'm considered by law to be a monster because I'm a human. Humans are monsters by law, right? So if you go and talk about my human rights, it's monstrous. So they kind of do a lot of stuff with human rights because they don't want monsters to have rights. But if you talk about the C-section for them, they would do it specifically if the baby was not going to be able to, you know, if there was something wrong, like if they could tell the umbilical cord was wrapped around the neck, or the mother seemed to be dying, or you know they would reach inside sometimes the vaginal, you know, or inside the vagina and look inside the space and you know with their hands or whatever, and they could see certain things were going on, then they might decide to go ahead and cut. And it was actually done differently. Like a lot of people don't even know this. For example, do you guys know what chainsaws are? You guys know what chainsaws are, right? And you know why they were originally made, correct? Just go mess with some people's minds. Right? You know why chainsaws were originally made? See, every culture does this different. That's why it's always cultural. There's context to it. See, chainsaws were not made to cut down trees. Okay. Chainsaws were not made to cut down trees. Chainsaws were made initially to cut into a woman and cut into even if part of her pelvis if necessary to be able to basically break the bone so that it could go ahead and take the baby out either vaginally or cut the baby out. Now, the chainsaw, admittedly, it did not look like the one that you go right that one where it wasn't that one. It wasn't that one, right? But it still was basically some knives set to something where somebody could rotate it, and that's what they were using it for. And since it didn't have the same force, it actually hurt a lot, anyways. Of course, it would hurt a lot regardless, and they didn't have anesthesia either, but it hurt a lot anyways for them to do because they were basically hand cranking it. So it was effective to a certain degree, but that's what it was created for. So they didn't use it initially to cut wood. They used it initially to cut you and to cut you during birth. Right? Horrific. But that's what they did. That's what they did. See, now we don't think about that. The two people on different places or different platforms, y'all saying the same thing, barbaric, right? Extremely so. And thank you for the love, appreciate it, right? So these are the people will argue against me about what I'm saying about how we gave natural birth or how we made sure our sister, were able to give natural birth. But they'll argue that. But they won't even be like, y'all use chainsaws. Maybe we shouldn't let you be the standard on this. Like the only reason y'all laid women on their back to give birth is because there was a French king who was who had a fetish for watching women give birth. And so he had women lay on their back and give birth so he could watch it. Maybe you shouldn't be our standard. Maybe we should just stop. Maybe we should stop that. Oh, I don't think Quee 83 meant anything by that. I think she was just laughing. Unless there was some comment that I don't know about, if somebody just muted her or something. But that was that was what that was for. Oh, I don't know about Nate Ash. I was talking about Quee 83. But that's fine. And I'm sorry, I know normally I don't say anything about it or whatever. I just noticed that one. I think she might have got some friendly fire. Right. But I'm just saying, like, we don't recognize this stuff. See, I wish they would just let me search for the name. I got to scroll through like every single person that's muted to find somebody, and they don't put them in alphabetical order either. So it's very difficult to find this person. If somebody finds it first, oh, I think I just found it. Right. But, yeah, no problem. That's what I figured. That's what I was saying. I think you was just laughing. If you still on, Quee, it's or if you're still listening, you on. But these are the things that are there, right? Like these are the things that we got to be aware of. It's like these people are the standard you're going by. Now, once again, that same slave mentality, what they were doing to their own women, the slave owners, etc. Right? The same people that were doing that, they say, go get a birth certificate, go get a social security card. Like, for example, it's not even lawful, right? I wish I meant to take a screenshot of this because I always forget which UCC this is, Uniform Commercial Code this is. But according to the UCC, I can't remember the numbers. I'm sorry, y'all. I'll try to find it. But according to the UCC, you're not supposed to. It is unlawful for somebody to try and force or press you into a place to where you have to give up your social security number. It's not supposed to be used for identification, ever. Right? So these same people that are lying to you, that know the law, some of them don't, of course. That's why you got to remember, as a sovereign, you were the master. But a lot of them who know the law and will still try to force you into getting something that you didn't ask for, something that you didn't require, who won't tell you how to make sure you get your DS-11 together and make sure that when you get in your job, what is it that they call it? The 109 form. When you get your job and you fill out your 109 or whatever, you should be putting non-citizen national on that. When they say U.S. citizen, you should be saying no. But see, then they say, well, hey, we need you to be a U.S. citizen. Can you prove your citizenship? So you press yes, and then you make sure that you give them a social security card that you're not supposed to use to identify yourself by law. They can't ask you for it, right? If you want to give it to them, so be it. But you ain't supposed to give it. These same people that are lying to us in all these areas, we don't think that they're having that same mentality. You say no because if you're a United States citizen, you're allowed to be a slave. The only people that pay taxes are people that are citizens, that basically are in debt. Right? Like I don't have a national debt. When they say our national debt, that's y'all. I ain't got nothing to do with that. I didn't create that debt. I didn't give the Federal Reserve the chance to be able to rule us over with numbers and stuff like that. I didn't connect the Federal Reserve Bank, to the White House physically. Like I didn't do that. I had nothing to do with that. You know what I'm saying? But I also have to realize I can't deal with their benefits and privileges. Right? If I'm gonna do that, then I have to make sure that I have a community together, or at least make sure I can do stuff within myself. That means I don't have to deal with their benefits and privileges. So if I send my child to their school, I can't be mad if they ask me for a school tax. Somebody says, well, if you drive on their road, first of all, I don't drive, I travel. You only when you're employed by somebody who you have to have a license to be able to work for. So I don't drive. I travel. Now, if you in a truck, I would hope that you drive because I need you to have a CDL. I don't need you just getting behind a truck randomly and not knowing what to do with it, right? If you got an 18 wheeler, I would hope that you drive. I would hope that you work for somebody or even in your own company. I would hope that you had that. But when you get into your own vehicle again, guess what? You travel. So can you get a passport? Yeah, your passport is part of what's going to free most of you, and you can learn how to fill it out. But what I'm saying is that those same people who are lying to you, they brought that standard into your house. See, if you believe the lie with all these other things, then why don't you think you believe the lie with marriage? See, just the same way that I'm talking about. See, when I drive, I have to be employed, so I have to be given permission to drive. To travel, that's your right by the Most High. Everybody, anybody can travel anywhere they want to go. Now, if you travel through a company, then of course you have to abide by what that company says. But if you're just traveling somewhere, you don't have to have a license to travel. But you need to make sure that you have those laws with you when you go, and you have to be able to teach those laws. You have to be a master, right? Every sovereign has to be a master at law. That means you have to be able to teach the law. If you can't teach that to a police officer, then you can't tell it to a police officer. A lot of police officers don't know that for themselves. You have to know it enough to be able to teach it. You have to be intimate enough with it to be able to give it to them. If you're not a disciple, if you're not disciplined in it, then when you get pulled over, you're not even gonna know what to say. If you don't have UCC 1-308 on your license, on your signature, for every signature, but especially on your license, you can't go into a judge and be like, hey, I don't live by the same contract that you guys are. I'm sovereign. If you just have UCC 1-308, you say that to a judge, a lot of judges will be like, oh, they'll look at the police like, didn't you see UCC 1-308 on there? Because they don't want the proof, they don't want the burden of that because they can get in trouble. They'll be like, did you not know that? And then and they'll say yes, this and that, and you can say by law, you can say no. I told them that, Your Honor. I literally told them according to Uniform Commercial Code, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like this is what I am, this is who I am, this is what I'm allowed to be. And Your Honor, they still said that they needed us to come to court. I still didn't have to come because of what the standard is. However, I decided to make sure that I protected my privacy as a sovereign and not have to deal with these things as a United States citizen. The judge, who's the trustee, has to follow the trust. The law will say, I'll deal with the police officer. You said the Constitution was written by slave owners, sure, but in the Constitution they still said that people can be free. That they didn't consider you to be a people, so you have to make sure that you have it documented that you're a person, or not a person, excuse me, that you're a people. You're part of a nation. How do you say that you're part of a nation? You can actually be protected by this nation as long as you are what? Not part of the United States Corporation, but a part of the United States of America, which is why you want to be a non-citizen national or a state national if you want to go there. You can become a Floridian if you're born in Florida. Get your birth certificate. Birth certificate says you were born in Florida. That's a state. Every state is sovereign unto itself. There's literally, look up Supreme Court cases. There are Supreme Court cases out there that literally tell you that, hey, it is that somebody can in fact be that people cannot. I'm sorry, that somebody cannot be taxed. There are cases out there. Do some case study. Go on Google Scholar and start doing some research and digging and digging. You'll find stuff that'll say stuff like, hey, just because somebody's part of the federal corporation doesn't mean that they are part of the or just because somebody is deals with the federal corporation doesn't mean that they are not part of a state, that they are not a state citizen. Right? You have to learn these things for yourself. You have to do some research. You have to do some digging. So even if, see, you got to comprehend, they still have to follow natural law. Even the Declaration of Independence, even though it talks about protection for people, they also say that they want to follow the nature. They say the nature of God. They say we want to follow the nature of God and what God says. So if you can find that the nature, but they also say that everybody has the right to be able to worship whoever they want. So whatever your God is, by law, right? Now we get into the Constitution. The Constitution backs up what they said in the Declaration of Independence, because how can you have a Constitution that doesn't follow your own declaration of what you say makes you independent of England? So therefore, if you say in the Constitution that I have a freedom or right to, religiously do whatever I want to do, and you also say the separation of church and state, and now I have a church, so to speak, then that means that that's separate, and that we can say that these people that come to this church or this organization, we can say that they are a people. And as a people by law, now you have to give us sovereign right. See, we're looking at this as the white man has it to where it's set. No, the white man still has to follow natural law. The black man has to follow natural law. Everybody has to. There's kingdom law, marital law, universal law, natural law, then substantial law. It has to be of substance out of nature. Nature substantiates. It's a substantive law. Then there's procedural law, the procedures that you do. Then there's remedial law. What's the remedy for it? Right? Then there's common law. Then there's law of equity. Then there's admiralty law. Then there's maritime law. Then we can get into public law and private law. We just go white man, blah blah. They have to follow the law too. That's why we were helping people with their with not having to get shots and things like that. We wrote letters based upon what? Upon the law. There's a law out there that even the United States military does. We were listening to somebody when we did a meetup recently. We were listening to somebody tell us about how some of the stuff that we stood on, the principle and some of the things we came up with and the laws that we follow, how this person, black woman, right? So don't be like, oh, it doesn't work for black people. And they'll get, no, black woman in the military, place they were saying everybody had to get a shot. She stood on law. We found laws. We looked up certain things. She studied it. I was like, hey, I can't do everything for you, but I'll take some sessions. We did a few 1-hour sessions and stuff, looked the stuff up, and she wrote the stuff out. She did this, she did that. She made sure that they comprehended that she was not part of the fictitious corporation, all those things. She talked about the not maritime law, about Nuremberg Code, all those different things or whatever. We looked up how it was backed up by the government. We looked at how the United States government put it in place when they found out what happened to the Jews and all that stuff like that. So if it protected the Jews and it protects the military, then why can't it protect her who's in the military, etc.? We did, we stood on law. We stood on law. We stood on principle. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. Principles are kingdom origins. See, and you got to stand on that in your family. Stand on law. That's the reason why you shouldn't want your wife to be, or your daughters or whatever, to refer to themselves as a B word. Yes, she was able to stay in. I just said that she was successful. We just had a testimony. We stood on law. She's still there. You hear what I'm saying? Like, people still, you see what I'm saying? She's still there? Like, yeah, you missed exactly what I said. I said, I said it with my chest. I'll say it again. I'm not coming at you. I'm just saying, like, it's in us to be like, is it really believable? Can we really do it? Yeah. She stood on law. She made it. She's still there. She's still going to retire with her money and everything in hand. She's still not, they try to say, well, you can't travel here. You can't do it. Fine. I'm not taking the shot. Well, we don't want you to blah, blah. No problem. I'm not taking the shot. I just labeled the law. I can't go over everything. That's not what I'm even doing. I'm not really giving legal advice. I'm giving you lawful information, right? You can check it out for yourself. But what and we had this. Well, we did have some of this stuff recorded. They took it down, but right. So I got to be careful how much I go into it. Anyways, if you want further instruction on it, you can always, take a class, or you can always, set up a one-on-one session or something like that, and we can talk it out, right? You said your husband was military. You had no issues there. You just surprised. Yeah, some people stood on it, some people didn't care, some people they did. Right? But hear what I'm saying, right? Hear what I'm saying is that we have this disbelief. So I'm saying all that to be said, you have to stand on principles and law within yourself. Law protects your rights. Why do a lot of people govern their marriages, govern their families the same way we did out of slavery? Because we're holding on to things that we don't have to be chained onto anymore. Are there specific books? Yes, books on law in general. Look up the definitions of what it is. I said look up. I talked about UCC 1-308, UCC 3-603. I talked about a law that says that you can be a state citizen, right? Every state is sovereign. Every state is sovereign, right? Look up sovereignty in states. You look up what I talked about as far as stuff. Look up Google Scholar. I said that everybody knows how to Google. Go to Google Scholar and then start typing stuff in. You can find articles and cases, things of that nature, right? But that's not what this is for today, unfortunately. Sorry, right? But we do have classes, and you can do one-on-ones, and you can just do some research, or hang in there, or look at some recordings of things that we had in the past, whatever, and you can be able to find those things. Yeah, I'm trying to look for it. That's what I was trying to give it earlier. Okay. So, but yeah, so we have this stuff is creeping into our marriages, right? And we're holding on to things that don't belong. We don't treat our marriages like law, like it's law, right? We don't treat our marriage according to law because we don't care about law. I mean, we follow the bare minimum to make sure we don't get arrested. That's really the most that we think about. I'm glad that you did. I don't know if I can. Yeah, I don't know if I can say your name, Ms. But I don't know exactly what it means. But a lot of us don't comprehend law. We do the bare minimum. We do whatever it is not to get arrested, and that's how you treat your marriage. I'll do the bare minimum not to get arrested. If I don't have to hear her mouth, I'll do it. Okay, I didn't know for sure, but you can see how I could take that a different way. But I feel you, right? I feel you though, right? So, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want to. Okay, so forgive me, right? But these are things that are real, you know, like the other things that are real. You know what I'm saying? Like we are carrying things in our relationships, and we're carrying the same thing. As long as Master don't say anything about it, it's okay. As long as Master don't say nothing about it, it's okay. As long as Master don't say nothing about it, it's okay. You said all those rights are only on paper, and you can benefit from some of them all the time. And um, okay. I mean, some people say those rights are only on paper. I'm telling you how I live. I don't do 9 to 5s. I don't pay fictitious governments with fictitious money. I know about negotiable instruments if necessary. I'm honorable when it comes to the law. Like I said, I've helped people do this. But once again, that's how we do. Our families are still governed by this. Our marriages are still governed by this. And so somebody says like, hey, have faith in this. We can do this. And somebody says, no, I've never seen it before, or it's only on paper. Or I know people say marriage can work, but I ain't never seen one. But like, you see what I'm saying? Like, and to each their own. I'm not asking you to believe it. Right? Any of us who are talking today, I'm not even asking you to believe it. I'm not saying receive it in the name of Jesus. Right? I'm not saying receive it. I'm just saying there's a different context to this, and you might want to learn about it. It might be the thing that saves your family. It might be the thing that stops your child from going to prison for something that they didn't do. When you can stand in front of the judge and you can say that, no, he's not such and such. He's here to represent such and such because his birth certificate is not who he is. His birth certificate's on trial. He's not. Just something like that gets you to start looking at jurisdiction different. He says sounds like sweet Jochi. Yeah, in a sense. You're allowed to do so. Teddy Roosevelt once said, see, and this is why we can't govern our own marriages. We look for somebody else to govern our marriages rather than what our standard is. Right? But hear this as well. Teddy Roosevelt said, look, if we had our way, everybody would take care of themselves. But he said we can't trust people to do what they're supposed to do because some of y'all don't hold yourselves accountable. So he said, therefore, if you can't hold yourself accountable, he said we have laws in place and you can become public, and we'll make sure that we can't trust all of y'all. And real talk, the sovereignty is not for everybody because a lot of people don't want to be held accountable. It's difficult sometimes to live sovereign, just like it's difficult to be public. Right, but it's the same thing in our marriages. Once again, see what I'm saying? It's difficult. If you notice, I've had a hard time even coming back to marriage the whole time because it's difficult to talk about marriage because everything I'm talking about to show you how these things affected. Everybody's like, well, I don't like that, and I don't like that, and I don't think that, and I don't like. You see why? Because we've been trained that way. That anytime, this is Willie Lynch 101. He said, anytime that you get tangible evidence of who you are, he said that we got to introduce something else to get you off track. We've been trained to do this. You see what I'm saying? We've been trained to do this. We've been trained to do this. Right? But would you rather, serve, would you rather live on your knees or would you rather die on your feet? And not everybody's got a mindset to die on their feet because that means that you have to be prepared to die. But if you're going to die anyways, I'd rather die making sure that my son looks at his father and says, I'll do that too. And he takes it to the next level and takes it to the next level. I mean, I'm willing to die for the cause. So if somebody says, "Oh, I'm gonna threaten you with prison," and that's all they're doing is threatening you. It doesn't mean you're going. Somebody will threaten you with leaving this marriage. Okay, well, if you're gonna leave this marriage because I'm doing what the Most High says, then okay. If I'm acting a fool, right, that's one thing. But if you're gonna leave this marriage because I'm actually living righteous, then you got to do. I can't force you to stay. I love you too much to control you because I can't control what I serve. I can't serve what I control. That's why you can't serve two masters. You'll either love one and hate the other. You're gonna serve one and can be controlled by the other. I'm sorry, you're gonna serve one and control the other, rather. See, now watch this. See, now we got to go deeper into it. Remember, I said you can't serve what you control and you can't control what you serve. Well, here's the deal. But when it comes to the Most High, if I serve the Most High, He always controls the devil. You said, bye, Felicia. You said the way laws are written can be confusing and very difficult to comprehend. Sure. It's a different language. It's a tongue, if you will. Right? But I don't serve. I serve the Most High. And when I serve Him, He controls the devil. You trying to fight the devil. No, I resist the devil. And he flees. Why? Because when I resist him, the Most High says, what's going on? Why is there so much resistance? Is it against me? Oh, it's against the devil. Let me take care of that. Resist the devil. And he will flee. You trying to fight. See, that's what sovereignty is. That's what being free is. Resist their benefits and privileges, and they will flee. You missed it. See, praise y'all. Let's end in this realm, right? As we get ready to take our leave pretty soon. Resist their benefits and privileges, and they leave you alone. The only reason they're coming after you is because you're not about their benefits and privileges. The only reason they think they can control you. You said that's why they have legal dictionary. Sure, look up Black's Law Dictionary, all 11 editions. That's the edition. That's the dictionary that's used in court by most people around the West. Not the matter of fact. I guess we could say the world to a certain extent, but definitely around the West, even in NATO. I would definitely agree with you. Read the legal dictionary, read the lawful dictionary, learn these terms, learn that Washington, D.C. is a territory, but it's not a territory by definition. Learn 28 USC 300215A. That's United States Code, not even Uniform Commercial Code. Read that, and it'll tell you the United States is a corporation. Go and read some more law and find out that the corporation its offices are located in Washington, D.C. Read some more law and say that Congress has no jurisdiction out of Washington, D.C. Read some more and realize that Washington, D.C. has no jurisdiction outside of what Congress says. And also then read the other law I mentioned earlier that says that that Washington, D.C. is a territory, but it's not because Virginia asked for the land back. And so now it really isn't physically a territory, which means if it's not physically a territory but it's a territory, it's over Congress, but Congress has no jurisdiction without it. That means whatever Congress says ain't even real unless you want to go ahead and deal with their benefits and privileges. Resist this. You brought up the other one, right? I'm talking about je suis, or well, not je suis. Sorry, suis. Je suis is basically saying I am or whatever, right? But this yo is literally saying that en français, it's literally telling us what, like this is something that's considered to be legal, but it's not even real. Y'all are looking for stuff that you think is legal, not even real. There's no law for it. They actually do that on the books all the time. They actually try out laws. They actually literally say, we're going to try this out to see if this law actually works because we don't think it works. They have that done all the time. And you live by them, not realizing that they're testing it out. You can test it out. If you know what the UCC is and somebody says, what were you doing? You can legit be like, I was trying to test it out to see if it works. You said, I just want to change the laws. No, I don't want to change the laws. I want you to use the laws. What are you talking about changing the law? I live by the law. Tell me what law I changed. I literally told you what law says, and you were sitting up there saying that I want to change the law. Tell me what law I changed. If I quote to you what the law says, then tell me how I changed it. Tell me what I'm not living. You see what I'm saying? You're so busy not listening. And this is why this stuff is coming to our marriages. You're so busy not listening. See, I know this much about anybody, right? Anybody who lashes out or gets angry, you're not angry at me. You're having an emotional response because I'm digging into something culturally that you've always believed. It has nothing to do with me. right? It has something to do with I'm presenting something to you in a context that you can comprehend that is not what you think it is, and your emotional response leads you rather than to listen, it leads you to respond. You are quick to respond and slow to listen, rather than quick to listen and slow to speak. The light is being shined upon you, the enlightenment is happening, and you can't take it, right? It feels like a whooping almost. I get it. I gave my whole life to this. I gave my whole life to this. And somebody trying to say that it's not real. Oh, no, no, no. I'm trying to tell you that you might have been doing some stuff that are dishonorable. It is some things that they look a certain way. And you think they're legal because nobody ever addresses them. But the reality is that they're not on the law books. How you doing, Big Eye? Yeah, we've thought, once again, you thought that you have to pay taxes. Well, if you are a public citizen, it is only right that you would pay taxes to the public. Is it not? I agree with you. Like somebody says you're wrong, you just want to pay. No, no, no. I agree with you. If you are going to do stuff that are benefits and privileges from the public, you should pay taxes for them. If you end up in prison, guess what? They're going to feed you, they're going to clothe you, they're going to house you, they're going to do all those things, and you never try to get rid of prisons. So since you didn't try to get rid of prisons, once you find yourself in one and you're going to deal with that, that's a benefit or privileges. Hey, they give you that. They've been doing that since England before they even were shipping people over here to make them in prison colonies over in what you call the United States now, right? You said taxes are a voluntary gift. Taxes are because you have debt. You're in debt because you're a citizen, right? And they can be voluntarily given. Sure, like you can be a sovereign if you want and still pay taxes. It's your choice. But then if you do that, then you're admitting that you should also get benefits or privileges, which means you might be sovereign on paper, but you're not really sovereign. And somebody can on that. See, if I say I'm sovereign, somebody has the right to challenge me, right? I don't mind the challenge. I just for challenging just for the sake of challenging is weird to me, you know. But you should try every spirit to see it is if it is a elacham. Try it out for yourself, right? But learn what it actually is. Learn what it actually is. See, you think that everything that's legal is lawful. That's the problem. And you do the same thing in your marriage. You think that everything's legal is lawful. In my house, this is what we've been doing since we've been married for 25 years. It don't mean it's lawful. Just because you had a Christmas tree up all the time doesn't mean that the word of Yah in Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 1 through 5 doesn't say, don't be like the pagans. Don't be afraid of the changes of seasons. Don't go into the woods. Don't chop down a tree. Don't bring it into your house. Don't nail it so it stands straight up. Don't paint it silver and gold. But here you are doing all that singing silver and gold. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's lawful. See, you see what I'm saying? Like you have the wrong mentality. You think that everything that's legal is lawful. It's legal to take drugs, but it's not legal to take other drugs. Is that lawful? I mean, it's legal. It's legal to take drugs. Vicodin, Oxycontin. It's legal. It was like legal, right? It is legal to take drugs. What is a drug? It's something that's been chemically, genetically modified. It's legal to take drugs. Why do they tell you that drugs are illegal, but you take them all the time? You get a shot, you taking a drug. It's legal. Shouldn't be lawful though. So you think that legal means lawful. We had the wrong mindset. So your family goes through something like the coronavirus and you start looking to figure out what's legal rather than what's lawful. Law protects rights. What's legal doesn't have to protect your right. It just means that's the way that the system goes. Right? If it's legal, watch this. If everybody in your city wants to make sure that they take a vaccine, it's legal for them to say that everybody got to take it, but it's not lawful for you to have to take it. All you got to know is Nuremberg Code and know that you have a right, by your religious belief system to write how law and the Bible go together. And once you do that, you can go ahead and defend yourself. And if you say you don't know what I'm talking about, we literally did it hundreds of times. I'm not even joking. I'm not even faking it with you. Hundreds of times for people. Hundreds of times. And not one time, except for a couple people who got weirded out by it and they had 2 jobs and they just said, okay, I'll just take 1 job, stuff like that. Not one time did anybody who followed the process, not one time did anybody come back to me and say it didn't work. There are some people we had to work months for it because they'll fight against you, but you still got to tell them you're the master, you're the teacher, you're the sovereign. This is how it goes down. You will bow down. Right? You got to be honorable though. If you don't follow law, I'm not look, I'm not helping people that don't follow law because I follow the law. I believe in the law. I believe in the law. Right? My family follows law. Right? But we don't follow everything that's legal. You think that because it's illegal, you can't do it because you don't know that law supersedes legality. You think they're the same thing. They're not. You see the hospital trying to force the shot on people use religion waiver and law. Yeah, if you know what you're doing, you can easily do that. Matter of fact, you can talk to the hospital. Hey, I need you guys to give me a form to make sure that I talk about my religious rights to not do that. They have to give it to you by law. They have to. Right? If you go in somewhere and you say, "Hey, I want to fill out a W-8BEN because I'm a non-citizen national," they have to give you the form, even if they don't know about it first. Like they can't force you to not fill out a W-8BEN. They have to. Right? They have to give you that. Thank you, Hidden. Appreciate it. Right? They have to allow you to protect your family. You think that you can't protect your family. That's not because it's lawful. It's because you think it's legal. You've seen so many people not protect their family. You've seen so many fathers not be there for their children. You've seen so many mothers be disregarded. You've seen so many children kind of be tossed to and fro that you just think that's the way it works. You think you have to use your social security card to get a bank account. Because you just never seen anybody do it different. So somebody comes and says, "Hey, I'm reporting to you. Remember, I'm ported here. I went somewhere else. I found out some information. I came back to give it to you. I'm simply reporting facts. Now you have a right to come with me on the next trip and leave this place, or you can keep staying in the same place. Either way, though, I'm showing you that it works." And people go, "Oh no, never. No, you're just one of them. You're crazy. You're one of those crazy Afrocentric brothers out there. You're one of those crazy Hebrew Israelite brothers. You just say all this stuff." No, like this stuff works. Sometimes you got to tell black people this to reassure them. Before we started doing it, white people were doing this, right? It works for white people. So if that helps you, like seriously, that's like the mindset. That's what I'm saying. Our families are messed up. There are times that I have to keep giving you when people say, "What book does it come from?" You know what that comes from? That comes from you say you want empirical data. Now I'm not saying you shouldn't look up what I'm saying and test it out, but hear what I'm saying. Most people when they ask that, you're looking for what's called empirical data, which is literally data that supports what the empire says about it. So I have to find what the empire says and then bring it back to you. So then you go, "Oh, okay, I'll listen." Like right, like that's what I have to do with my own people. What's interesting enough is that when the classes started, they started because white people started coming because they were like, "Oh, I haven't heard this before. Let me listen." We had to work hard to get our people to start saying, "Okay, I guess we'll come to the SOC University and see what's going on." Right, and I'm not mad at it. I get it. We're coming out of slave mentality, and so it has to make sense for massa. But a lot of us were not the first ones to even start attending this stuff when we started doing it. I know some of you haven't been around for a long time. I'm just saying, when we started, it wasn't people that looked like us, even though it was designed for people that looked like us. You know what I'm saying? So I have to oftentimes be like, "Well, such and such wrote it in this, and here's this empirical data, and this scientist says, and that this white woman over here said blah blah, and this white," and then I have to tell you, like if I say Susan B. Anthony, I could just tell you, stop listening to Susan B. Anthony. But some people will be like, "Oh, why let's stop listening to Susan B. Anthony? She's the mother of the woman suffrage." But so then I have to go and find you quotes. I have to be like, "Okay, look, this is what she said about she would rather cut off her right arm than make sure that black beasts could vote. She wasn't fighting for you. Right. Then I got to go and tell you, if somebody be like, why shouldn't I listen to Hillary Clinton? And I got to go back and say, okay, Hillary Clinton worked for this company. And Coretta Scott King is quoted as saying, blah, blah, this company. But let's just see what she said out of her own mouth. She called you a super predator. And then she didn't apologize for it. Then she apologized for it after her husband wouldn't apologize for it. And you know that she's got this, and boom, boom, woo, woo, woo. And then she's in trouble with the Red Cross. And people in Haiti hate the Clintons because, and Bill Clinton did this with rice and this and that or whatever. And so literally now you got Haitians over there that can't afford to give you what they grow because it's cheaper to buy it from somebody else who doesn't even give the same quality of rice, and they got to eat mud pies while making sure that they sell rice to other people so that the Clintons can get money and that the Red Cross can come in and they can have this tag team going on with people, right? Like I have to give you all this stuff for you to go like, okay, I guess I'll listen to it now. And you know why? It's because you have to hear it through the mouth of somebody else so much. He said Psalm 94 addresses trying to make anything in the law, verse 20. Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law? Yeah, that's true. I think we got to put the verses with it too to make it complete. But I agree with that to a certain degree. But also too, who shapes the law is always indicative of the faithfulness. So I definitely get that, right? Like, but people, like, I have to literally be like, okay, like I can say George Washington wasn't the first president. Oh, you're just making that. Okay, fine. Look, George Washington is quoted as saying these two people were his favorite presidents before there was even a such thing as him being the president. Oh, okay, maybe I'll listen, right? Like I have to give it to you, but I get it, right? But see, we don't recognize that a lot of stuff that's passed down. See, this is what we have problem in our family. How can I pass down things spiritually? If every time I talk about it, you got to have somebody documenting it scientifically when science is always catching up with the spiritual. Right? Do you hear what I'm saying? Like, you guys just starting to believe in what NASA's telling you as far as the Van Allen belt. They don't even call it the Van Allen belt. They actually have something that specifically says there's a belt, there's something even more hard that they can't get through. They sent nuclear weapons at the Van Allen belt and this other thing. Right? But now you're like, oh, okay, maybe the Hakwai, what you call the firmament, you like, now maybe that's real. It was always real. Like that, and that's what Yahweh said. That's what Yahweh was trying to teach Thomas, when Thomas was like, until I see the holes in his hands and the hole in his side, then I believe that he came back. And that was a real statement. So then he saw him and he said, oh, you are Yahweh at Elacham. Right? He literally said, Yahweh, you have to be Yahweh at Elacham. You have to be the Father, because only the Messiah who comes from the Father, who's one with the Father, could do what you did and came back. And then he said to Thomas, he said, it's great you believe now, Thomas. He said, but blessed are those when you start getting to a level to where you will believe even without seeing. Right? He said there's another level to this, to where if you've been around me long enough, remember he said to him, show us the Father. He said, how long have I been with y'all? And you don't even know that I'm the Father. I just finished telling you, if you've seen the Father, you've seen me, because the Father's in me and I'm in him. There gets to be a level where it's like, at some point, somebody should be seen. This is why marriages fail. At some point, look, I've been in your life, baby girl, 30 years. And I've been faithful, and I built this up, and I built that up, and I put in the work, and I've trained my children, and I've been obedient to the word. But like, after a certain amount of time, you should at least give me something. Why am I still arguing? That's why I said Gold Coast is something even besides the Van Allen belt. But once again, right? Like, like there comes a point where it's like, in my marriage, why am I still arguing who I am? If I keep being faithful over and over and over again. And thank you, Minister Tamara. I see you switching over. If I keep showing who I am over and over and over again, that's why your wife I gotta do this. I gotta deal with this again. You still don't trust me. You still gonna compare me to your ex. You still waiting for me to go ahead and go out on the girls' vacation and cheat on you. Like, I've been doing this for 30 years. But you still looking for empirical data based off of the empire. You think you're the emperor. And so you're like, if the data doesn't meet my specifications, it's not real. Your spouse is sitting there like, how many years is this gonna take? I mean, I'll hang in there, I guess, but how many years is it going to take for you to heal? I'm here to help you heal, but you telling me that I'm doing this and doing this and doing this, and I'm not doing it. That's not for healing purposes. You know what I'm saying? Here's your wife saying, when will you make me feel secure? Well, I'll make you feel secure when you respect me. But what does respect mean? Well, make sure that you have this, make sure that you make this, and make sure my food is ready. Make sure, but okay, fine. 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years. When does she get the security now? When does she know that you are going to make sure that she is taken care of no matter what? You hear what I'm saying? Like, this is what it is. And we don't, once again, we don't get married to people who have broken from mental slavery. I've gone too long, right? We don't break from people who got broke free of mental slavery. We date people who are enslaved by dating. Dating has expiration on it. You go out on the first date, okay, I guess that one went all right. All right, hopefully it goes all right. We'll see what happens after. You don't think, is this person worthy of marriage? Because if they're worthy of marriage, we need to start seeing if we're compatible to build a life together forever. You don't look at that. You look at, okay, they'll take me out for something to eat. I guess that'd be nice. Yeah, like what marriage is based off that? But a lot of marriages are. That was the first time you met. Oh, maybe, yeah, maybe we'll go get some. Oh, shoot, them hips right there. We'll see where it goes. Hopefully, it ends up being a nice night. I mean, that's what we base the stuff off of. Then we say, why does a marriage work? Because you're not qualified for it. Come out of that thought process. Come out of the mentality where you think that marriage is supposed to be something that, see, thank you, Holy Spirit. I was going to end. I'll be disobedient. This is really what I was supposed to say almost in the beginning. I praise you that you brought it to my remembrance, right? Some of you treat your spouses like slaves. We talked about that, but to this point, if you don't do what I tell you to do, then I won't give you what it is that you want. I'm only going to give you what I give to slaves now. I'm only going to give you what I give to slaves. That's what a lot of people live by. You want security, you better give me respect. And I'll only give you bare minimum security if you give me 100% respect. You want respect? Okay. Well, you better do this and this and this and this and this and this to make me feel secure. Then you better give me affection. And then you better give me this. And then you better give me praise. And then you better do this and blah, blah. And then maybe after all that, you get sex every once in a while. I'll give you some breadcrumbs. Right? Literally not realizing that you laying out breadcrumbs because you trying to lure a child in to eat them. That's not Hansel. That's not Gret. Is it Gretzel? Gretel? Gretzel? I don't know. It's not Hansel. It's not Gretzel, right? That's a human. That's a person that's you're supposed to be with for life. Why are you leading them by breadcrumbs? I'll give you a crumb of respect if you give me all the security, give me all the money, take me to this, take me to that. You got to spend all your money. That's why some men think that women only are after money. It's not your fault, sisters, but you got to admit there are some sisters out there that do that. So then that's why some brothers, they become the monsters that you don't want to see, because they say, well, if that's how it works, fine. I'll make so much money that I could be the monster in control. That's how you get Andrew Tate. He said as much. He said one time I tried, because remember his dad was somebody who basically was trying to pimp out his mom. For real, for real. He doesn't want to hear me say it like that. He thinks it's the world of his father, and he should. But real talk, like Andrew Tate talks about how he tried to get with a girl and she basically like laughed him off because he was skinny and blah blah and this and that, and he ain't had no money in this. And so guess what? He said, I will never again let anybody put me in that position. All it took was one time. And he said, you know what? I tried to do it the way that they said was right, but maybe the way my father was doing it to my mom was real. His father would dip out for months and months and months, would come back. His mom wouldn't even say anything at first. Go ahead, wash his clothes, do that while trying to check his pockets like any great wife should do, or any great person should do. When you washing clothes, you would just look through to see if somebody's stuff is in there. She pulls out pictures of him with another woman, and she would dare ask, "Who is this other woman? And why am I washing your clothes? And where have you been for months?" And as soon as she starts asking questions, he would look at his boys and he would say, "Oh, she's tripping again. I'm sorry, son. I'll see you guys later." And he'd dip out for more months. He actually tried it outside of his father's way. I'm gonna step up to a girl. I'm gonna be nice and be presentable, this and that, or whatever. And when the girl dogged him, guess what he did? He became the very thing that he thought that she wanted. If that's what you want, if that's what you want as a monster, somebody that got so much money that you'll bow down to the money and not to the man, then I'll teach a whole bunch of men to never be lovable. I'll teach a bunch of men just to be rich. And that's what all these men out here want now. All these brothers out here, they want to be rich. They don't want to be lovable. May I say that again? Because that'll bless somebody out there. Brothers listening, look, don't worry about being rich, because true riches come from being lovable. Anyway, sisters, stop looking for riches, because there's a rich man out there that'll slap the mess out you. there's my wife and I were laughing at some guy the other day. We were listening to him, a Nigerian cat, I believe. I could be wrong. Where I forget where he was from actually, but he was sitting up there and he was talking about how his granddaughter, was having problems with the husband and stuff like that. And he was like, "Oh, you and grandma love each other so much. What is what is it? How did you guys work in this and that?" And he was like, "It's not funny, but I'm just gonna be honest with it. It's wild. It's one of those things you laugh at because it's just like you so blown by the answer." But he basically was like, "Oh, granddaughter." He was like, You wouldn't want the relationship that your grandmother and I had." And she was like, "Well, why not?" And he said, "Because I used to." He's like, "Because I used to hit her." He said, "I used to." He didn't even say it like it was a bad thing. He's just like, "Because I used to hit her." He's like, "You can't handle that." He's like, "You talk back to your husband and this and that or whatever, I would slap her." Like, y'all think that just because somebody walking around nice with a smile and he looked good, great, and he got this and that, there's somebody out there who beat the mess out you. But he rich. He got great credit. He got street cred. What was it you said, babe? He said he laughed and said he slapped. Oh yeah. He was about to say he slapped the shit out of her. And we was just like, what? Like, because it's like you're in your mind thinking, sweet old man, isn't that or whatever. And he was like, "Oh no, you couldn't have handled being in our relationship." He was like, because what he was saying is that what you see between your grandmother and me is because he was saying like, "Oh yeah, she had no place to go. She couldn't go anywhere. What could she do?" He like laughed about it. It's like she can't go back to her family. She can't go back. Like all she has is me. I moved her away from there. Like this is the stuff that's going on, right? But you'll be like, "Oh, okay, well, he got it going on and blah, blah, and this and that." Be careful. That's why we say, like, what is his vision? Does he have a vision plan for you? A vision plan that goes beyond that he just got great credit, that he got a house or a nice car, right? Don't look for riches. Look for a vision. Look for a mission. The mission will make you wealthy. Riches just mean that you'll be in a place. I mean, you get security, but do you want bare minimum security? You want security that comes with benefits. These benefits I'm talking about come with stuff like, not laid out carpet, but maybe it comes up with laid out massages. Maybe it doesn't come out with a nice chandelier, but maybe he lifts you up and appreciates you and value, right? Maybe it doesn't come with a 3-car garage, right? But maybe it's going to come with affection that you need at all day, every time. Maybe it's not going to come with an 8-eye stove, in the kitchen and an island in the middle of it and all that stuff. Maybe he doesn't come with that. But guess what? He can build towards that and be righteous and have a mission and a vision that makes you get what it is that you need. He can lay out a vision plan that you want to live inside that, and you will now be submitted not to him, but submitted to the mission, because submission is not submission. It is submission. We are not asking for you to submit to a man. We are asking for you to submit to a mission. See, but Greco-Roman thought process says be submitted to a man, right? Kick rocks is what you should say to any man that says submit to me. But appreciation of the mission is any man that explains the vision to you. When that vision turns, see, watch this. I promise you this. We got to get ready to take our leave. I'm over time a lot, right? Last thing, and then I don't know. We might even continue some of this tomorrow. We'll see how the Most High takes us. Last thing, and then we'll take our leave, do our shout out and everything at the end, let the music play and stuff. Real talk, okay, family? Real talk. You ready for this? Right? I hope you get this. I hope you receive this. This will bless you. Think on this. Don't just take this. Don't just be happy about this. I want you to think and meditate on what I'm about to say as long as you can today. All right? As many times as you can today, maybe for a week or so. When you get with a husband that makes 100 million, when he makes his next 100 million, uh, your life won't change that much, and you won't be as appreciative. I promise you this though: when you get with a husband that came from the mud and he makes his first million, it'll mean something different to you. I'm gonna say it 2 more times. When you get it, all right, it'll seep in there. I'm gonna say it 2 more times. When you get with a husband and he got 100 mil, or if you just get with a man that's got 100 million, that's one thing. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's one thing. When he makes another 100 million, okay, your life ain't gonna change that much. But I promise you, get with a man that got it out the mud. You get with a husband that got it out the mud, and he gets that first million. I promise you, that thing gonna be sweeter. I'm gonna say it one more again, and then you go ahead and do with it what thou wilt. Right? When you get a man who makes his who has 100 million, when you get with him, when he makes 100 million more, I promise you, as much as you think all this stuff, like I promise you, your life will not change that much. Your thought process, your standards, all that stuff will not change. All this stuff that you think is going to happen to you because he made all this money, it will not change that much in your eyes. It's not going to mean that much to you. It will not. However, right? You get with that husband who made it out the mud and you helped him to accomplish the vision and y'all stayed true to the mission and you were both in submission to it. That first million is oh so much sweeter. All right. Thank you for the love. That being said, thank you all. We are over time. Please check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. I also want to tell you guys, give you a reminder, we will be on tonight. We'll be on Patreon Kingdom, Patreon family will be on tonight as well at 7. We'll have our evening live at 8 p.m. I will be on tomorrow at 8 a.m. Okay, so I will be on tomorrow at 8 a.m. So we'll have our regular live sessions, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, podcast, all that. We'll have that stuff today. Okay, so we thank you guys for being on. We appreciate you. Any ways as far as trying to get in contact with us? So if you're on TikTok, we're going to do our shout out at the end where we let the music play and we show some different things how you can get in contact with us or see different things that we're trying to do. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, simply just look at the description with the video to be able to get in contact with us if you want more information on things we've been talking about. But we thank you guys so much. We honor you. We appreciate you so very much. And don't forget your affirmations. Romans chapter 8, verse 1. Romans 8:11, Romans 8:18, Romans 8:19, Romans 8:28. And take care of yourselves. Ministerial staff. This is the first Thursday of the month coming up. So we have a ministerial staff meeting at I believe 6:30 p.m. Eastern New York time, and this is the first Friday of the month, so we're asking for everybody, if you can, to come on in and be part of that, or well, to go out to your community and be a blessing to somebody. Whether you see somebody in the street, you can bless them with something. If somebody in your family, you can bless them with something. Whatever the case might be, go out and bless somebody the best that you can. But we thank you all. We appreciate you. We honor the King and Queen, each and every one of you. Please study this word and meditate on it so you can be hearers of it and doers simultaneously. We appreciate you so very much. I've got to get ready to start getting into some calls and some one-on-one sessions and things like that. Thank you guys for your prayers, for your energy, for your effort, for your talents. And yes, even some of you who donate financially as well in different ways, and do a lot of stuff behind the scenes. We thank you so much and we honor your time. We'll get ready to do our shout out. When I say our shout out on TikTok, what we're literally going to do, even though we're outside, so there'll be some different things that you'll be hearing, but hopefully you'll be able to hear the music. But long story short, those of you who are going to be with us during the shout out, we ask that you just simply say your state. And if you'd like to, your city as well, if you're okay with somebody from SOC contacting you, and we'll make sure that one of us, more than likely myself first, but one of us reaches out to you and just says hello. And then we can make sure that if you want to be part of meetups or different things that we do outside of this, you can have somebody to be able to walk this walk with you. And you don't have to feel like you're by yourself. You can have some people that are like-minded who are rolling with you. So thank you again, everybody. No matter if you're on YouTube, Facebook, or TikTok. We appreciate the king, queen, and each and every one of you. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice to the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, just love that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Take care. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.